Nox sat against the wall, listening to the steady rhythm of Syrian's breathing. She was finally out cold, really sleeping for the first time since the chaos started. The room was quiet, the kind of quiet that made every ache in his body more noticeable. His ribs throbbed. His shoulder burned. He couldn't tell which bruises were from fights and which were from simply existing in this world. He sighed. Well, this sucks. With nothing else to do, his thoughts drifted to the system. He'd leveled up, had a pile of unspent stat points, a new unique skill box from the Lola fight, and one feature he'd been completely ignoring since the gym incident. The shop. Might as well check it out, he thought. Open shop. A sleek new window appeared in his vision. Organized, simple, almost soothing after the chaos of the God chat. Tabs line the top. Consumables. Equipment. Skills. Materials. Below them his balance. Divine coins, 100. Right, the coins Aurelia had sent him. He tapped consumables first. Minor health potion, heals 50 HP, 25 coins. Minor mana potion, restores 50 MP, 40 coins. Antidote, common. Cures minor poisons, 15 coins. Stamina biscuit, boosts stamina regen, 10 coins. 40 coins for 50 MP? That's robbery. He could barely buy 2 healing potions before going broke. He switched to the skills tab and almost laughed. Fireball beginner, 1,000 coins. Low heal beginner, 1,200 coins. Basic swordsmanship, 800 coins. Yeah, sure. Let me just sell my non-existent house, he muttered. It was like those predatory pay-to-win mobile games from his old life. He was about to close the window when a new tab blinked into existence at the far right, flashing gold, a tiny star icon spinning next to it. Gotcha! Oh, of course. He opened it. A massive treasure chest filled the screen, a glowing question mark hovering above it. Test your luck. What wonders await? 1 spin, 10 coins. 10 spins, guaranteed rare item, 100 coins. A gotcha? Really? He almost laughed out loud. The most manipulative trap ever designed, and the only thing he could actually afford. He knew how this worked. 9 pieces of junk and 1 slightly less junky rare. But what if? He stared at the 10 spins button for a long minute. Screw it. He hit it. The chest shook violently before bursting open in a storm of colorful light. 10 glowing icons shot out and lined up in front of him. 1. Ambrosia of the Gods, legendary consumable. Fully restores HP/MP, cures all status effects, and grants plus 20 to all stats for 1 hour. His eyebrows lifted. Legendary? First pull. 2. Shadow Step, rare active skill. Teleport to any shadow within 30 meters. Requires corrupted mana. A teleport skill. His grin started to grow. 3. Heartwood Branch, mythic material, a branch from the World Tree. Used to craft items of immense power. The God chat immediately flared to life. Baron Von Cynic, what? Mythic? That's impossible. System error. Lord of Carnage. 3 high-tier drops in a row. Kids breaking probability. Aurelia. Go NOX. Sparkles, I told everyone you were special. He ignored them and kept scrolling. 4. Ring of the Silent Walker. Unique accessory. Plus 10 agility. Completely silences footsteps. Paired with his Shadow Wisp amulet, he'd basically be a ghost. 5. Vial of Dragon's Blood, legendary potion. Permanently plus 5 strength and endurance. He blinked. A permanent stat boost. That was unreal. 6. Title. Favored by fortune. Slightly increases quality of all loot drops. 7. Potion of 1,000 Faces X3. Rare consumable. Disguise yourself as anyone you've seen for 24 hours. 8. Soul Gem of the Void, legendary material. A crystallized fragment of nothingness. Used in forbidden enchantments. Lady Veritas, this is unnatural. Fortune, this extreme, defies balance. Hermes 4. Someone hacked cosmic RNG, and I'm here for it. Faced with tears of joy. 9. Plus 20 unallocated stat points. And then the 10th, the guaranteed rare. It pulsed brighter than all the rest. 10. Seed of Corruption, mythic seed. A nascent core of corrupted power. Absorb via core integration to upgrade mana core and affinity. Warning, highly volatile. He stared at the row of icons. Ambrosia, teleportation, a stat-boosting potion, a world tree branch, a mythic seed that could literally rewrite his power system. No normal luck could explain this. He didn't know if the system was bugged or if he'd somehow become its favorite glitch, but the grin on his face said he didn't care. Well, he murmured, voice low and amused. That was worth it. Knox stared at the glowing list of rewards hanging in his vision. The quiet room around him felt distant, unreal, like the world had forgotten to catch up to what just happened. Holy shit. His mind was loud, buzzing. Legendary. Mythic. From a 10-spin? With my crap luck stat? No way. This has to be a bug. But the grin that spread across his face said he didn't care. Bug or not, it was real, and it was his. The gacha, the most rigged mechanic ever invented, had just handed him a jackpot that defied logic. He almost laughed out loud. He flicked through the rewards again, each line reading like something ripped out of a high-level raid drop. A teleport skill, a permanent stat potion, a luck-boosting title, and that seed of corruption. Dangerous, sure, but danger usually meant power. No point just staring at it, he decided. His gaze landed on the vial of dragon's blood. Use it. You have consumed the vial of dragon's blood. Strength +5, endurance +5, permanent. Heat surged through his body. Not painful this time, but deep and molten, like liquid fire settling into his bones. His muscles tightened, his breath came easier. He felt alive. Next, the stat points. 30 from Lola, 20 from Agacha. 50 total. A gold mine. Lola wrecked me because she was faster and tougher, he reasoned. Raw strength's great, but it's useless if I can't keep up or take a hit. He didn't hesitate. 20 to strength, 20 to endurance, 10 to agility. A subtle hum passed through him as his body adjusted. Power woven right into muscle and bone. Status updated. Name Nox. Level 18. Titles: Anomaly Slayer, Dungeon Conqueror, Mercenary Hunter, Favored by Fortune. HP 110/290. MP 5/55. Strength 74. Agility 59. Stamina 27. Endurance 69. Perception 37. Luck 24. Unallocated points 0. He nodded. Better. More endurance meant more HP and faster regen. Almost 70 points, enough to actually tank something now. He equipped the new ring next. Ring of the Silent Walker equipped. Effect: footstep silence. He took a step on the creaky wooden floor. Silence. Another step. Still nothing. A sharp grin cut across his face. Oh yeah, this'll be fun. He still had one unopened prize. The unique skill box from beating Lola. Open. Unique skill acquired. Shadow Sculpt, active, LVL1. Shape corrupted mana into a simple melee weapon. Durability and sharpness scale with level and mana control. Sustained via MP drain. Knowledge flowed into his mind like muscle memory that had always been there. He raised a hand and focused. The air above his palm shimmered. Dark smoke leaking from his skin and swirling together. He pictured a dagger. Simple, sharp, lethal. The mist condensed, blackening into a solid form. A blade of pure shadow took shape, lightless and cold. It didn't shine. It devoured light, like he was holding a fragment of night itself. He turned it over once, then gripped it tighter, a low laugh rumbling from his throat. This was power. His eyes shifted to the last reward, the seed of corruption. The warning replayed in his mind. Volatile, unstable, unpredictable. It was a bad idea. The worst, probably. His body was still recovering from his last mana overload. But the thought of what it could do, upgrading his entire core, jumping ahead by months, maybe years of grinding. He glanced at Syrian, still asleep across the room, her breathing slow and even. Perfect time. He knew it was reckless. He knew he should wait. But reason didn't stand a chance against the pull of more power. Go big or die trying, he thought. And I've done the dying part before. He sat cross-legged and pulled the seed from his inventory. It materialized in his palm. a small, pulsing orb of darkness, warm and alive. He activated core integration. Let's do this. The seed melted instantly, turning to black liquid that soaked into his skin. The corruption raced up his arm like fire, stabbing toward his chest, toward his core. The moment it reached, everything went white. Then came the pain. It wasn't heat. It wasn't pressure. It was destruction. His mana core convulsed as the alien energy from the seed clashed with his own corrupted mana. They tore into each other, trying to dominate, to erase. Nox's back hit the wall with a violent crack. His vision fractured, red warnings flashing across the chaos. Warning: core integration failure imminent. Anomalous energy rejected by host core. Cascading energetic collapse detected. Catastrophic meltdown in tonight. He couldn't even scream. His body convulsed, every muscle locking as agony ripped through him. His mind thrashed between raw terror and disbelief. This is it. I'm actually going to die. From a loot drop. The timer kept ticking down. 7, 6, 5. He tried to push back, to use his will to contain it, but it was like standing between two explosions. His corrupted mana and the seed's power collided, shattering against each other. The god's chat flickered into his vision, a chaotic blur. Aurelia Inox? Wait, stop, don't. Baron Vaughn's cynic. And there it is. The beautiful, predictable result of unearned greed. A spectacular implosion in progress. Nox couldn't even respond. The pain swallowed everything. And then his vision went black.
Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support, we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
Rejected? How? His control was gone. He was just a passenger in his own body as it tore itself apart. Then, through the blinding pain, a memory surfaced. The fight with Lola. The feeling of letting go, of letting that cold, dark rage take the wheel. He hadn't tried to control the power then. He had become the power. Wait, an idea, born of pure desperation, cut through the agony. Don't fight it. Don't try to control it. His thoughts became sharp, clear, and utterly insane. Eat it. Instead of pushing the two warring energies apart, he did the exact opposite. He opened the floodgates of his will. He didn't just let them in. He pulled. He drew on the memory of every insult, every beating, every moment of humiliation. He embraced the cold hatred that had fueled his awakening and used it as a catalyst. Come on, you bastards, he snarled in his mind. You want to fight? Fine. Fight inside me. But I'm the one who decides who wins. He focused all of his being on one single command: integrate. The pain intensified for a single, terrifying moment, a nova of pure agony that made his heart stop. Catastrophic meltdown in T-3, 2. Then silence. The pain vanished. The warring energies didn't just stop fighting. They slammed together, merged, and became one. The countdown timer in his vision froze, then flickered out of existence. A series of new, calm blue notifications began to scroll. Core integration successful. User's mana core has undergone a profound evolution. System compatibility reestablished. Core upgrade. Mana core. Grade C- Void touched core. Grade A. Description: your mana core has been irrevocably altered by the seed of corruption. It now draws power directly from a chaotic, void-like essence. Mana capacity and regeneration are dramatically increased. All mana is now permanently corrupted mana. New passive trait, Void Resonance. Your corrupted mana skills are 25% more potent and 15% more efficient. Level up. X5. You are now level 23. All stats increase by 5. You have 25 unallocated stat points. A low, shaky laugh escaped his lips. Grade A. Just like that. But the system wasn't finished with him. The integration of the seed of corruption hadn't just upgraded his core. The volatile wave of power had washed through his entire being, forcibly rewriting every skill he possessed. A flood of new notifications slammed into his vision, one after another. Your skill, Regeneration, has been assimilated by the Void-Touched Core. Skill evolved. Shadow Mend, passive, LVL 3. Description: your corrupted mana now constantly seeks to mend your flesh, forcefully stitching wounds closed with void-laced energy. Healing is rapid, especially outside of combat. Your skill, Indomitable Will, has been assimilated by the Void-Touched Core. Skill evolved. Will of the Abyss, passive, LVL 3. Description: your will is no longer just your own. It is an anchor in the void. Grants near absolute immunity to mental attacks, fear, and pain. You cannot be mentally dominated. Ever. Your skill, Weapon Mastery, has been assimilated by the Void-Touched Core. Skill evolved. Void-Edged Arts, passive, LVL 2. Description: you can channel corrupted mana into any weapon you wield, imbuing it with a void-laced edge that increases sharpness and durability. Greatly enhances proficiency with all weapon types. Your skill, Appraise, has been assimilated by the Void-Touched Core. Skill evolved. Void Gaze active, LVL 2. Description: see the hidden truths of items, creatures, and individuals. May reveal weak points, hidden enchantments, or a target's true nature. Effectiveness scales with perception and the user's own corruption. Your skill, Soul Link, has been assimilated by the Void-Touched Core. Skill evolved. Tainted Bond, passive, Yeta, Kindra, Vesa. Description: the deep bond you share is now tinged with the void. You can feel their emotional state with greater clarity and may exert a subtle, calming influence over them when they are in distress. The corruption may have other effects. Your skill, Parkour, has been assimilated by the Void-Touched Core. Skill evolved. Shadow Glide, passive, LVL 3. Description: movement becomes an extension of the void. You move with an unnatural silence and fluidity. Massively reduces fall damage and allows for short-distance wall running and enhanced aerial agility. Your skill, Core Integration, has been assimilated by the Void-Touched Core. Skill evolved. Void Assimilation, passive/active, LVL 2. Description: your Void-Touched Core can now devour other monster cores to directly absorb their power. The process is faster and more efficient, with a significantly reduced risk of failure. Grants a chance to absorb a more potent version of the creature's traits. Your skill, Primal Strength, has been assimilated by the Void-Touched Core. Skill evolved. Primal Void, active, LVL 3. Description: unleash the raw, savage power of the void through your physical form. Dramatically increases unarmed damage, strength, and grants minor damage resistance. Stamina drain is significantly reduced. Your skill, Shadow Sculpt, has been assimilated by the Void-Touched Core. Skill evolved. Void Forging active, LVL 2. Description: shape your corrupted mana into complex, non-projectile melee weapons or simple pieces of armor. Creations are more durable and can possess sharper edges. Your skill, Shadow Step, has been assimilated by the Void-Touched Core. Skill evolved. Void Step active, LVL 2. Description: instantly dissolve into nothingness and reappear in any shadow within a 50-meter radius. Can now be used in rapid succession with increased mana cost. The list was long, and every single entry was a sledgehammer of a power-up. Every skill he had, twisted and made stronger by this new, dark power. A final notification appeared, this one grander, its border pulsing with a faint, dark light. Your actions have broken the established parameters of the system. You have forced an evolution upon yourself outside of expected progression. New title acquired, Abyssal Anomaly. Title effect: all corrupted/void-based abilities are 10% more effective. Entities of chaos and order will perceive you with heightened interest. Feel out a long, slow breath, a dark, smoky vapor escaping with it. He looked down at his hands. They looked the same, but they felt different. They felt like they could tear the world apart. He felt Syrian stir on the other side of the room. He heard her take a sharp breath, and he looked up. She was awake, sitting up and staring at him. Her eyes weren't focused on his face, but on the air around him. Her elven senses could clearly see the faint, dark mist that was now clinging to him like a shroud, a visible echo of the power churning within him. Her expression wasn't one of fear. It was one of pure, unadulterated awe. "Nox," she whispered, her voice barely a sound. What? What have you become?" The air in the room was thick with a silence that felt heavier than a physical weight. Syrian was on her knees, staring at him, her eyes wide with an awe that was deeply unsettling. The faint, dark mist that clung to his skin was a visible sign that something had fundamentally changed. "Nox," she whispered, the name a question, a plea, and a statement all at once. What? What have you become?" He just looked at her, the last vestiges of that overwhelming power receding, leaving him feeling hollowed out but incredibly alive. His mind raced, scrambling for an answer, for any lie that could possibly explain what had just happened. Shit, what do I tell her? He thought, his brain spinning. I ate a magic gotcha seed and broke the system? Yeah, she'll totally buy that. Fucking hell. He knew she was too smart, too perceptive to accept some bullshit excuse about a sudden power-up. Just as he opened his mouth to try and bluff his way through it, the god chat flared to life in his vision. Trickster god Hermes Foru, awkward. How's he going to explain this one? I just mainlined a void, no big deal. Faced with tears of joy. Lord of Carnage, just tell her you're strong. Who cares about the details? Punch things, get loot. Simple. Baron von Cynic. He's going to make an absolute fool of himself. I can hardly wait. Then Aurelia's private message appeared, bright and helpful. Aurelia, goddess of resilient sparks, private chat. Tell her you have a sponsor, a divine patron. Lots of powerful people in my world have them. It's a perfect explanation. She'll understand. Sparkles. He stared at the message. A sponsor? A god. The idea of admitting he had help from these yapping jackasses made his stomach turn. But it was a good lie. It was a clean, simple explanation that fit into her fantasy world logic. It was better than anything he could come up with. Fine, he thought, a sense of annoyance passing through him. I'll use their stupid idea. He pushed himself to his feet, his new, upgraded body feeling strange and powerful. He met Syrian's wide-eyed gaze. I've got a sponsor, he said, the words feeling weird in his mouth. He tried to put a little swagger into it, a small, cocky smirk. A powerful one. They decided I was a good investment. He saw the understanding dawn on her face almost instantly. Her expression, which had been a mixture of awe and fear, softened into one of pure relief. Her shoulders, which had been tense, relaxed. She bought it, he realized. She actually bought it just like that. She didn't need any more details. She didn't press him with questions. In her mind, the impossible power she had just witnessed now had a name, a source she could comprehend. A divine patron. The same kind of being who had saved her in the alley. It all made a twisted kind of sense. She got her feet, wincing as she put weight on her good leg. She limped over the short distance between them and, without a word, sat down on the blanket next to him, her shoulder almost brushing against his. He looked at her, then quickly looked away, focusing on the rough wooden wall in front of him. This was new, this quiet companionship. It wasn't awful. He pulled up his status screen, his mind turning back to the important things. Power. He still had 25 unallocated stat points from his latest levels. Okay, what I need most, he thought, his eyes scanning his new stats. Strength is good. Endurance is solid. Agility could be better. But then his gaze fell on his perception. It was still his lowest combat stat. Finna saw me coming. That archer almost got me. I need to be able to see trouble before it sees me. He didn't hesitate. Dump all 25 points into perception. His vision seemed to sharpen, just a little. The dust motes dancing in the faint light from the barred window became clearer, the grain of the wood on the wall more defined. It wasn't a huge change, but it was something. Player status. Name Nox. Level 23. Title Anomaly Slayer, Dungeon Conqueror, Mercenary Hunter, Favored by Fortune, Abyssal Anomaly. HP 200/330. MP 80/80. Strength, 79. Agility, 64. Stamina, 32. Endurance, 74. Perception, 67. Luck, 24. Unallocated stat points, 0. He dismissed the screen, a feeling of satisfaction settling in his gut. He was stronger. He was ready for whatever came next. He glanced over at Syrian. She was looking at him, her expression thoughtful, her earlier awe replaced by a quiet curiosity. So she leaned in closer. Mind telling me what you were staring at just a second ago? Fucking hell, she saw that. My eyes were moving, he thought. Gotta play it cool. She can't know about the system. He shrugged, leaning back against the wall with a casualness he didn't feel. Nothing. Just thinking. She didn't buy it. Not for a second. She leaned in a little closer, her eyes narrowing as she studied his face. The faint light from the barred window caught the silver in her hair. No, you weren't, she said, her voice a low, knowing whisper. Your eyes were moving, back and forth, like you were reading something only you could see. He kept his face blank, but his mind was racing. Damn it, she's too sharp. What do I say now? He was out of good lies, and the truth was not an option. He was cornered. Thud, thud, thud. A heavy knock echoed from the barred door, making them both jump. He looked at the door, then back at Syrian. Saved by the fucking door, he thought, a wave of pure relief washing over him. That was close. She was still staring at him. Seeing the relief on his face just made her more suspicious. The heavy scraping sound of a wooden bar being slid open on the outside cut through the silence. The door creaked open just enough for someone to step through. It was Liesa. She carried a simple wooden tray with 2 bowls and a pitcher of water. The look on her face was pure contempt. Food? It's the middle of the night. Whatever. He was starting to get hungry anyway. She stomped over and slammed the tray down on the floor between them. A bit of stew slopped over the side of one of the bowls, making a small puddle on the wood. Here's your slop, human, she snarled, her voice dripping with venom. Eat it and be grateful. Before he could even think of a comeback, she turned on her heel and stalked out. The door slammed shut, and the heavy bar slid back into place with a final, echoing thud. He just stared at the spot where she'd been. He looked down at the food. It was some kind of root stew, but it smelled decent. Bitch, he thought, but he picked up a bowl anyway. He wasn't about to let a little rudeness get between him and a free meal. The next morning, the heavy wooden bar slid open with a grating scrape that dragged Knox from a light, restless sleep. Mela stood in the doorway, her expression unreadable. The elder summons you. Both of you. Showtime, Knox thought. He pushed himself to his feet, his body feeling coiled and ready. The aches from his core integration were gone, replaced by an energy that felt like a predator waiting to be unleashed. He helped Syrian up, her face full of caution. They followed Mela back to Fenna's house, the other dark elves watching their slow procession with the same cold hostility as the day before. He felt their glares like they wanted to eat him over some rice, but they didn't bother him. They were just noise. Fenna was waiting for them, standing by the fire pit. Her gaze was like chips of ice. I will speak with the Sun Elf, she announced, her voice leaving no room for argument. Alone, as if on cue, 5 other elves stepped from the shadows of the house. He recognized the scarred, angry face of Jor and the cold, emotionless one of the archer, Valeria. They moved to surround him, their hands on their weapons. So, they want to separate us. He knew where this was going. It was a test or an execution. Either way, it was going to be fun. He turned to Syrian, his voice low. Be careful. She met his gaze and nodded. You as well. Take the human to the proving ground, Fenna commanded without looking at him. Jor's lips curled into a cruel smile. With pleasure, Elder. They led him away. He didn't resist, just walked with a steady, confident pace, Syrian's worried gaze on his back. He was surrounded, a prisoner being led to some unknown fate, but he felt a thrill coiling in his gut. 5 of them, he thought, his eyes moving from one to the next. Let's see what you're made of. He focused his gaze on Jor, the one who seemed to be in charge of his little escort party. Void gaze. Jor, Ashen Elf Veteran. Level, 55. HP, 1100, 1100. MP, 300, 300. A seasoned warrior, proud and aggressive. Relies on overwhelming his opponents quickly. Weakness. His pride makes him susceptible to taunts, causing him to fight recklessly. Level 55. Not bad. A smirk appeared on his face. Such a lame weakness. Reminds me of that mutt. They walked past the last of the tree houses, heading deeper into the forest. The path became less defined, the trees thicker. This wasn't the way they had come. So, what's a proving ground? He asked, his voice casual. Is that just a fancy name for the place you murder your guests? Jor, walking beside him, allowed a harsh laugh. It is where we determine if something is a threat, or just meat. He glanced at Knox, his eyes filled with contempt. I've already made my decision. Good to know, he said, his tone bored. They arrived in a large, circular clearing. The ground was hard-packed earth, bare of any grass, and the trees surrounding it were scarred and broken from past battles. It was an arena, plain and simple. The 5 elves fanned out, forming a wide circle around him. They drew their weapons. Jor's curved knife gleamed. Valeria knocked an arrow, her movements silent and fluid. The other 3 drew swords, their stances low and ready. My mother ordered my sisters to bring you back alive, Jor snarled, stepping forward. She gave no such orders to me. Knox just stood in the center of the clearing, his hands hanging loose at his sides. He looked at each of them, his gaze lingering on Valeria for a fraction of a second. So, it's 5 against 1, he said, his voice laced with a faint, amused tone. Doesn't seem like a very fair test. A slow, dangerous smile spread across his face, a look of pure, predatory excitement. I almost feel sorry for you. Oh. Jor's lips curled into an expression of pure contempt. Look at it, brothers. A human. The race of vermin that crawls over the world like a disease, leaving nothing but ruin in its wake. Another of the elves, a tall one, spat on the ground. They are foul creatures. They reek of sweat and desperation. And they die so quickly. A third added, his voice a low sneer. Their lives are a frantic, meaningless scramble for power and coin before they wither and turn to dust. Pathetic. Knox's expression didn't change. He just watched them, boredom clear on his face. That makes sense. We are pretty trashy, he thought. The taunts were meant to cut, to provoke him into a reckless rage. But the words just bounced off him. They were talking about humans, a species he had nothing but disgust for. He remembered the sneer on Mark's face as his head was shoved into a toilet. He remembered Ms. Joy's cruel laugh. Not just her either, all those bastards in his class. He remembered Ava's voice, clear as a bell, calling him a pathetic loser. He knew all too well just how cruel humans could be. They're right, he thought, a cold, empty feeling settling in his gut. But they're not even close to being harsh enough. Is that all you have? He asked, his voice quiet but cutting through their insults. You're not going to mention their hypocrisy? The way they preach friendship and loyalty while sharpening the knife they'll stick in your back. The taunts died in their throats. Jor's sneer faltered, replaced by a look of sheer confusion. Knox took a slow step forward, a humorless smirk twisting his lips. His eyes were cold, dead voids that held a hatred far deeper and more personal than their simple prejudice. You're right about humans, he said, and the sincerity in his voice made a chill run down their spines. Filthy, treacherous, backstabbing animals. He looked each of them in the eye. They deserved to be wiped from the face of this world. The silence in the clearing was deafening. They stared at him, their weapons half lowered, their confident smirks gone. They had tried to insult him with their hatred for his race, but his own hatred was a far purer, more terrifying thing. They had brought a knife to a war, and they hadn't even known it. Valeria's emotionless face twitched, her eyes widening just a fraction. Jor took an involuntary step back. Idiots, he thought, the smirk fading from his face. They thought they were insulting me. They were just describing my old life. He let out a quiet sigh. This is a waste of time. I was expecting more. Let's just get this over with. He activated Void Step. He vanished, dissolved into nothingness, then reappeared directly behind Jor in a whisper of displaced air. Jor's eyes went wide with shock. He felt a cold presence at his back, heard a voice that was too close and too calm. The first one is you. Jor stumbled, spinning around, his knife held in a clumsy guard. The other elves reacted a half-second too late, their eyes wide with shock. Nox was in their formation, a wolf among the sheep. Too easy, he thought, a cold smirk forming on his face. He could end Jor right now, a simple thrust, but that wasn't the point. This was a test. Let's see what this new body can really do. He didn't attack. He just took a step back, melting into the space between two of the other elves. He moved with an unnatural fluidity, a product of his new shadow glide skill. The ground didn't even crunch under his boots. "He's behind you," one of the elves yelled, pointing. Nox was already gone. He used another void step, this time appearing on the far side of the clearing, right next to the treeling. He just stood there, his arms crossed, watching them. "What is this cowardice?" Jor snarled, his pride stung by the teleportation trick. "Face us like a man, human. He wants me to stand still and get stabbed? Lame." He just shook his head, his smirk widening. He had their weakness, pride, and he was going to dissect them with it. He activated Void Forging. A faint, dark mist bled from his right hand, swirling and condensing into the shape of a simple, black dagger. "You want me to fight?" He called out, his voice casual. "Fine, but 5 against 1 is boring." He pointed his new dagger at the tall elf with the scar. "You, the ugly one. Let's see if you're any better than your boss." The scarred elf's face twisted in fury. "You dare." "Terra, no," Jor commanded, pointing at Nox. "He is trying to divide us. Attack together. Surround him." TCH, how annoying, he thought. But at least one of them has a brain. The 5 elves moved at once, their elven speed a blur as they closed in from all sides. Terran came from the right, his sword a high arc. 2 others charged from the left, their blades aimed low. Jor circled around to his back, while Valeria drew her bow from a distance, looking for a clear shot. It was a classic pincer movement, designed to overwhelm and kill. Good, he thought, a thrill shooting through him. This was finally starting to feel like a real test. He didn't try to meet them head-on. He void-stepped again. He vanished from the center of their closing trap and reappeared directly in front of Valeria. She was 20 meters away, pulling her bowstring taut. Her emotionless face finally cracked, her eyes widening in pure shock as he materialized less than a foot from her. She didn't even have time to release the arrow. His left hand shot out, not to attack, but to grab the front of her tunic. He pulled her forward, using her as a human, elf shield. "Valeria!" Jor screamed. The arrow she had been about to fire went off, the strings slipping from her shocked fingers. It flew harmlessly over Nox's shoulder and into the trees. He held her in front of him, his forged dagger pressed lightly against her throat. "What were you saying about attacking together?" he asked, his voice a low whisper in her ear. Her body was rigid, her heart pounding against his arm. The other 4 elves skidded to a halt, their attack broken, their faces a mixture of fury and disbelief. "Let her go, filth!" Terran roared. "Now why would I do that?" He turned to Valeria. "Pretty cute face you have there. Would be a shame if it got messed up." Valeria's breath hitched, her stoic facade shattering completely at his words. A faint flush crept up her neck. He felt the subtle shift in her body, the flicker of fear and indignation. TCH, makes me look like the bullies I hate. He had no intention of actually hurting her. That wasn't the point. The point was to break their formation, to shatter their confidence. He shoved her hard. She stumbled backward, tripping over her own feet before crashing into Terran and another elf who were rushing forward. The 3 of them went down in a tangled heap of limbs and elven pride. "There," he said, dismissing his void-forged dagger with a flick of his wrist. "Your shield is back. Now what?" Jor's face was pure fury. "You coward. You hide behind tricks and hostages. Is that the only way a human can fight?" "He's right," Terran shouted, untangling himself from the pile and getting to his feet. "Stop your teleporting games and face us with honor." Nox let out a long, theatrical sigh. The sound was pure, manufactured boredom. "Honor? You want to talk about honor when it's 5 against 1? He shook his head. "You guys are really one note, you know that. They're just like the bullies back at school," he thought. "All tough talk and pack mentality." They can't handle it when someone doesn't play by their stupid rules. But fine. If they wanted a show, he'd give them one. It was a good chance to test the limits of his new Primal Void skill anyway. Fine, he said, his voice dripping with condescension. You want me to fight like a real man? He hopped down from the slight rise he was on, landing softly on the hard-packed earth of the arena. You got it. He didn't draw a weapon. He didn't summon his dark energy. He just raised his fists, settling into a low, bouncy stance. He vaguely remembered seeing some old boxing movie on TV late one night at the orphanage. The main character stood like this, all coiled energy and sharp angles. Was it like this? He thought, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. It felt a little awkward, but the power in his muscle from the primal skill made up for the lack of technique. The elves just stared at him, their confusion playing on their faces. What is this fool doing? One of them muttered. Jor's rage, however, blinded him to the absurdity of the situation. All he saw was the human, weaponless, and mocking him. He insults us. Jor roared. Kill him. Overwhelm him now. He charged, and the other four followed his lead, a wave of angry elves surging across the clearing. The 5 elves rushed him. Jor came first, knife out, aiming to gut him. Amateur, Nox thought. He remembered some moves from a movie. Bob and weave. Jor's knife slashed. Nox dropped, bending his knees. The blade cut the air over his head. He came back up and threw a hard hook at Jor's ribs. Activate Primal Void. His fist hit, causing a wet crack. Jor's eyes went wide. All the air left his lungs. He flew sideways and hit the dirt, his knife falling from his hand. The other 4 elves stopped. They stared at their boss on the ground. One, he thought, shaking his hand. The punch had hurt him, too. The guy in the movie never hit that hard. What are you waiting for? Jor choked out from the ground. Kill him. Terran roared and charged, swinging his sword high. This one's an idiot, he remembered. Reckless. He didn't back up. He threw a quick left jab. Terran knocked it away with his sword arm, leaving himself wide open. Got him. He threw his right hand. It was a wild, heavy swing with all his strength behind it. It smashed into Terran's jaw. There was a loud snap. The elf's eyes rolled back as he crumpled to the ground, out cold. Silence. The 3 elves left, Valeria and 2 swordsmen, just stood there. They stared at their fallen friends, then at Nox. A dark smoke curled from his mouth. Just like Mark and his friends, a cold thought surfaced. Always brave in a pack. Guess this is what it feels like from the other side. He didn't hate it. You, one of the swordsmen stammered, taking a step back. You're a monster. Nox's lips pulled back from his teeth. Took you long enough. He took a step. The swordsman flinched, then turned and ran, dropping his sword as he fled into the trees. He let him go. Trash. The last swordsman looked at his friend running away, then looked at Nox. He threw his weapon down. I yield, he said, voice shaking. Now it was just him and Valeria. She stood 20 feet away, her bow up, an arrow pointed at his heart. Her face was stone, but he saw her hands were shaking. He started walking toward her, his feet making no sound. It was like a reaper walking to claim its victim. She followed him with the arrow. Don't come any closer, she said. He kept walking, his steps slow and even. One step, then another. Valeria's hands trembled, but the arrow didn't waver. It stayed pointed right at his heart. She's scared, he thought, but she's not running. Interesting. He stopped a few feet from her, well within the range where she couldn't possibly miss. He just looked at her, his head tilted slightly. You know, he said, his voice quiet and conversational. You remind me of someone I know. She stared at him, her expression of cold focus finally breaking into confusion. What? Quiet, he said, nodding. Annoying, but not stupid. He gestured back towards the unconscious elves on the ground. Not like them. Her face twisted, her confusion replaced by a flash of pure venom. I'm nothing like a friend of a human. I didn't say she was my friend, he replied, his tone unchanged. Your kind is a plague, she spat. You are a disease that consumes everything beautiful in this world and leaves only rot behind. He had heard this before from Jor and the others. But this was different. This was just angry noise, loud and empty. Hers felt real, like she truly and utterly hates humans. Yeah, I got the talking points already. You guys really need some new material. He watched her, his eyes narrowed, analyzing. But you really mean it, don't you? This isn't just because I'm human. This is personal. She flinched, a barely perceptible tightening of her jaw. It was the only confirmation he needed. What do they take from you? He asked. The question wasn't sympathetic. It was just curious. Her cold expression slammed back into place. I will not speak of my pain to a human, she said, her voice like ice. Now die. He just shrugged. Fine. Don't care anyway. He turned his back on her. It was an insult, a statement. You don't matter. The thought hit her with the force of a physical blow. He was just walking away, dismissing her, her pain, her entire world of grief, like it was a mild inconvenience. The smoke hit her then, a memory that never faded. The smell of burning pine and something else, something sweet and terrible. Her father's shout, a name she could no longer let herself remember, swallowed by the roar of the flames. Her mother, her face full of terror, pushing her into the undergrowth. Run, Val, run. And Elia, her little sister, her hand, so small, slipping from her grasp as a human soldier in crude iron armor grabbed her. They had taken everything, burned everything, left nothing but ash and ghosts. And this boy, this human, he had the gall to turn his back on that ghost. On her. No. The thought was a shard of ice in her heart. You don't get to walk away. Tears blurred her vision. Her hands, moving on their own, pulled the bow string further. The world narrowed to the shape of his back, a black silhouette against the dappled light of the forest. This was for her mother, for her father, for Elia. Her fingers released the string. The arrow hissed through the air, a promise of vengeance. But it never found its target. Nox vanished. She gasped, her mind reeling. Where? Displaced air brushed her cheek. He was in front of her. His fist was pulled back, wreathed in a storm of dark, swirling smoke. It was frozen in place, less than an inch from her face. The sheer force of its halted momentum blasted her hair back from her forehead and stung her tear-filled eyes. She stared at the fist, at the promise of a death so fast she never would have seen it coming. The rage, the grief, the burning hatred, it was all extinguished in an instant, replaced by a cold, absolute fear. He looked down at her, his eyes holding none of the fury she expected. Then, the swirling smoke around his fist dissipated. He slowly, deliberately, uncurled his hand. He didn't hit her. He patted her on the head, a slow, almost clumsy gesture. She looked up at him, her mind a complete blank, tears still tracking through the dirt on her face. I get it, he said, his voice quiet and flat. Losing everything. He dropped his hand and turned away again, his back to her once more. So stop crying. We're going back. Back in the village, Fenna knelt on the floor, her hands working on Syrian's ankle. The poultice she applied was dark green and smelled of crushed leaves and damp earth. This will sting, she stated, not looking up from her work. I can handle it, Syrian said, wincing as the poultice made contact with her swollen skin. Fenna finished her work and began wrapping the ankle with a clean, white cloth. Her movements were efficient, but also careful. The bone is mending, but it will take time. You will not be walking on this for at least a week. Syrian watched the older elf's hands. Thank you for your help. Fenna tied off the bandage and sat back on her heels. Her eyes, dark and sharp, finally met Syrian's. I am not helping you. I am ensuring my prisoner does not perish from a preventable injury. Syrian's back went stiff. I'm not your prisoner. You are a stranger in my woods, she countered, her voice unchanging. A sun elf. That makes you a potential threat. So you will remain my guest until I decide otherwise. She tilted her head, her gaze piercing. Which brings me to my first question. Why are you traveling with a human? Here is. Syrian shifted on the blanket. He is my companion. Fenna's eyebrows drew together. A companion? Your kind does not take companions from the race of men. Syrian lifted her chin. Times have changed. My world is gone. His is broken. We are survivors. She's so naive, Fenna thought. She stood up, her movement slow. She walked around the fire pit, her eyes never leaving Syrian. Survivors do not trust their enemies, and humans have always been the enemy of the forest. Syrian looked at her hands, which were resting on her lap. He is not my enemy. He saved my life. Fenna stopped her pacing. She let out a short, sharp laugh. It was not a happy sound. He saved you? A boy barely out of his cradle? He has no training, no skill. He is just a ball of uncontrolled, raw power. Syrian's head snapped up. That power saved me from Gorik's hounds, and from his mercenaries. Gorik? Umph. She walked closer, crouching down in front of Syrian. You speak with such conviction. It is almost believable. She reached out a hand, her long, dark fingers hovering just over Syrian's forehead. Let me see if this conviction is your own. Syrian flinched, but didn't pull away. What is she doing? A faint, cool energy flowed from Fenna's hand. It washed through Syrian's mind, a gentle but probing presence. It searched for any sign of outside influence, any trace of a compulsion spell. She pulled her hand back, her expression twisting from suspicion to confusion. There is no enchantment, no mind twist. Her eyes narrowed. Your will is your own. Syrian just stared at her. I told you, but... She leaned in closer, her dark eyes scanning Syrian's face. I feel something else, something dark, a brand on your very soul. Her hand moved from Syrian's head down to her chest, her fingers hovering over her heart. Here, it is a curse. Syrian's own hand went to her chest. The mark. She remembered Gorik's cruel laugh as he branded her. It was a warning, from the one who hunts me. Who would use such foul magic? Speak his name. She took a breath. The name felt like poison on her tongue. Gorik. Fenna's expression hardened. A memory crossed her face. Gorik the Defiler. She said the name like an old, unpleasant memory. Syrian looked surprised. You know of him? I know the name, she said, standing up and turning her back to her. She walked back to her herb table. An old friend spoke of him, a brute who leads a broken clan, preying on the weak from the shadow wastes. She picked up her stone pestle. He is a coward who sends others to do his work. That he is hunting you is interesting. Syrian felt a small sense of relief. Fenna wasn't afraid. He wants to use me as leverage against my kingdom. Fenna slammed the pestle down into the bowl, making a loud crack. His ambition has grown. He used to be content with raiding border villages. She turned around, her eyes burning with a cold fire. Tell me everything. How did he place this mark upon you? I see. Quite the situation you found yourself in. She kept looking at her like S.E. was feeling sorry. Does the human know? No. I didn't think it was important to tell him. You did not think it was important? You travel with a beast, and you choose not to arm him with the truth. Syrian's jaw tightened. He is not a beast. Fenna slammed a hand down on the table, making the small clay bowls on it jump. He is. I felt that power he unleashed. It is a foul, uncontrolled thing. A cancer. She pointed a finger at Syrian. It reeks of a hunger that has no end. That power saved my life many times, she shot back, her voice rising. For now, Fenna scoffed, turning away to pace in front of the fire pit. A rabid dog might save its master from a wolf, only to turn and bite the hand that feeds it. She spun back around, her dark eyes burning. He is a weapon without a wielder, a storm without a sky. He is a danger to himself and to everyone around him, especially you. She doesn't understand him at all. Syrian pushed herself up a little straighter against the wall. You're wrong. Am I? She took a step closer. I see a child drowning in a power he can't comprehend. I see an arrogance born from ignorance. Her voice dropped. He is a walking calamity, and you have brought him to my doorstep. He just wants to get me home, Syrian insisted. He wants power, she corrected. I can see it in his eyes. It is the same hungry look I have seen in 1,000 other humans before they burned our world to ash. She leaned down, her face just inches from Syrian's. He is not your protector, girl. He is a time bomb. And when he finally explodes, I will not let him take my forest with him. Syrian met her gaze without flinching. Then you do not know him. And you do. Fenna stood up, a cruel smile on her lips. You think you know the heart of a boy who has a power inside him? You are a fool. She walked to the door and threw it open. Mela. Mela appeared a moment later. Take the sun elf back to her room, she commanded, her back to them. And bring the human to me. It is time I had a talk with him. If he is alive, that is. Mela stepped forward. Come, sun elf. If he is alive? The words hit Syrian like ice. What did they do to him? She pushed herself up. What have you done with him? Finna didn't even turn around. That is not your concern. Mela put a hand on Syrian's arm. We have to go. Syrian shook her off. No. She looked at Finna's back. Where is he? Finna picked up a small clay bowl, examining it. You ask too many questions. A bad habit for a guest. She set the bowl down. You will go to your room. You will rest. You will wait. I won't. Mela moved between them. Do not challenge my mother, she said, her voice a warning. The door opened again. Nox stood there, flanked by Jor and another elf. He wasn't bloody. He wasn't even dirty. He just looked bored. Syrian's breath caught in her chest. Oh, thank God he's okay. He walked into the room, his eyes finding hers for a second. He gave a tiny shrug. He is alive, Finna stated, finally turning around. She looked Nox up and down, a strange look on her face. And my guards are not. Jor flinched, looking down at the floor. He was too fast, Elder. He used some kind of trick. Tricks do not break bones, Jor, she said, her voice cold. She turned her full attention to Nox. You defeated 5 of my best warriors. Without a scratch. Nox crossed his arms. If these are your best, then you have your work cut out for you. Her face was stone. You think you are better than them. He shrugged. I'm still standing. They're not. Her eyes narrowed. I want to speak with him. She pointed a finger at the door. Alone. Mela looked at her mother, then at Nox, her face full of worry. Mother, that's not a good idea. Ouch, she said. Her voice was not loud, but left no room for arguing. Jor opened his mouth to protest. Elder, he is dangerous. Finna's head snapped toward him. Did I ask for your opinion, Jor? He shut his mouth, shot Nox a look of pure hatred, and stalked out of the house. Mela hesitated, then bowed her head and guided Syrian out of the room. The door closed behind them. This should be fun. I wonder what she wants to talk about. She walked around the fire pit slowly. She did not take her eyes off him. You have a power that does not belong to you, human. He leaned back against the wall, crossing his arms. You find a wallet on the street, it's yours. I found this. Same thing. She stared at him, her dark eyes unblinking. His casual arrogance was a wall she couldn't seem to break through. She had expected fear, maybe even defiance, but this was just boredom. It was insulting. This was going nowhere. She gave up and turned away, walking back to her table. She picked up her pestle and began grinding herbs again. But Nox had his own questions. This forest, he said, his voice quiet but clear. It's dying, isn't it? That got her attention. The grinding stopped. She set the pestle down slowly and turned back to him, her eyes narrowed in suspicion. What are you talking about? On my way back here, I sensed some mana gaps, he explained, pushing himself off the wall. He took a step closer to the fire pit, the light flickering on his face. It's hard to notice, of course, but my senses are not ordinary. Your senses are human, she scoffed, dismissing his words. You cannot possibly feel the lifeblood of the woods. You are blind to it. Am I? He took another step, circling the fire pit, his eyes scanning the room as if he could see through the walls. Then tell me, Elder, why is the great root, the one that anchors this entire village, rotting from the south? It's slow, a darkness creeping up its core like a poison. I can feel it from here, a cold spot in a warm river. Finna froze. Her composure, which had been as solid as stone, finally cracked. Her eyes widened, genuine shock and fear passing through them before she could hide it. No one could know about the great root. It was a secret known only to her and the oldest chanters of the village. A human could not have sensed such a thing. It was impossible. Ow! She started, her voice a strained whisper. How could you know that? He saw the terror in her eyes, the complete and utter shock. He had hit a nerve, a deep one. He grinned. I told you, my senses aren't ordinary. That was the wrong thing to say. The fire died instantly and the room went black. She moved faster than he could track. Her hand slammed over his mouth before he could blink, iron fingers digging into his jaw as she lifted him clean off the floor. His feet dangled uselessly in the air. "You have no manners for those above you," she growled. Guess I got under her skin. He didn't fight it. Couldn't anyway. He just hung there, studying the cold strength in her grip. It was incredible. "You think this is a game?" She squeezed harder, and pain shot through his skull. "How do you know about the Great Root? Did Gorik send you? Is this his new trick?" "Gorik? So he is known even here." He just raised an eyebrow at her. She lost it completely. Insolent child. She slammed him back against the wall hard enough to rattle his teeth. The whole house shook from the impact. "I can crush your skull like a dry leaf." Yeah, she probably could, but she won't. She will need me for this root thing. He was right. She held him there, shaking with barely controlled rage. She couldn't kill him, not until she had answers. And he couldn't give them to her. Not the real ones anyway. The stalemate stretched between them until finally she lowered him back down, but she kept her grip on his face. "You are a plague," she whispered, leaning in close. "But you are a plague that has seen the wound. The Great Root is failing. Arata has taken hold that my chanters cannot cleanse. It's killing this forest, killing my people." She finally let go. He rubbed his sore jaw. "That's a real sob story. But you see, I don't give a shit." Her world tilted. He punched her so fast, she didn't even realize she was punched until she was already off her feet, flying into the wall. "That one felt solid," he said, grinning while creating 2 daggers. He looked at the 2 black daggers in his hands, then at the old elf crumpled against the wall. Yeah, that felt really good. She wasn't moving. He could just walk over, stick these daggers in her, and be done with it. No more tests. No more being looked at like he was dirt. It would be so easy. Syrian had asked him why he was even trying, why he'd come with them so easily. He remembered telling her he was tired of being alone, that he wanted to see what it was like to not push everyone away. What a joke. He had tried. He had actually tried to play along, to be the guest, to see if maybe these elves were different from the humans back home. But they weren't. They looked at him with the same disgust, spat on the ground where he walked, and called him filth. It was the same old crap, just with pointy ears this time. Pathetic loser, scared of change. He could still hear Ava's voice in his head. Maybe she was right. Maybe this whole experiment in not being a loner was just a stupid waste of time, because people were all the same. They just found someone to pick on, someone to hate, and it didn't matter if you were human or elf. The daggers in his hands felt solid and real. This was the only thing that made sense. Power. The ability to make it all stop. Fenna pushed herself up from the floor, one hand pressed against the wall for support. There was a thin trickle of blood at the corner of her mouth, and her eyes were wide, not with pain, but with a kind of shock he'd never seen before. She looked at him like he was some impossible puzzle. "You," she started, her voice a low, raspy whisper. "You dare strike me?" He let the daggers dissolve into black smoke, his hands now empty. "You were in the way." The anger in her eyes was almost a physical force. "I'm the elder of this forest. I'm the voice of the trees. And you, a human whelp, a child of a lesser race, struck me." "Yeah, and I'll do it again," he said. He was so tired of this. Tired of being tested, tired of being judged. The anger that had been simmering all day was finally boiling over. He felt a twitch in his hands, a deep need to just hit something until it broke. "I tried, he said. The words just started coming out, fueled by pure frustration. "I really did. I came here to your stupid forest, and I thought, okay, let's see what happens. I was told I was a coward who pushed everyone away, so I figured I'd try not pushing." He let out a harsh, bitter laugh. "And what do I get? The same old shit. You all treat me like garbage, just like everyone else." He started pacing in front of the dead fire pit, too agitated to stand still. "You think you're better than humans? You're not. You're just as bad, with your sneering and your stupid pride." He stopped and pointed a finger at her. "I'm so sick of it. I'm sick of holding back, sick of trying to be something I'm not." His voice got louder, bouncing off the walls. "I just want to hit something. I want to break something. I want to let all this out on someone who can actually take it." He jabbed his thumb at his own chest, his eyes burning with a hot, reckless light. So fight me. Stop with the tests and the talking, and I'm so much better than you crap, and just fight me. He was yelling now, the words scraping out of his throat. Come on, Elder. Let's see what you've really got. Fenna stared at him. The shock on her face slowly melted away, replaced by something else. It wasn't just anger. It was a cold, dangerous curiosity. She wiped the blood from her lip with the back of her hand and stood up straight, her posture regaining all of its earlier authority. You challenge me, child? She asked, her voice dangerously calm. You, who knows nothing of real power. You wish to dance with me? I don't want to dance, he snarled. I want to break your face. A slow, chilling smile spread across her lips. It was the first time he'd seen her smile, and it was not a pleasant sight. Very well, human. You wish to vent your childish frustrations? You wish to see true power? She took a deliberate step away from the wall into the center of the room. Then you shall have your wish. But not here. She walked to the door and threw it open. We will go to the proving ground, and I will teach you the difference between a tantrum and a battle. This was a stupid idea, and he knew it, but he didn't care anymore. He walked into the clearing, the ground hard under his boots. The other elves started showing up, their faces all looking the same, angry. He saw Liessa being helped by her sister, Mela. She just glared at him, her face still pale from their fight. Mela brought Syrian to the edge of the clearing. She looked really worried, leaning on a branch for support. He could feel her staring at him, but he didn't look back. The god chat went nuts, a bunch of new names popping up. Hades, god of the underworld. A mortal child challenging an elder who commands the lifeblood of a forest? This is not a battle. This is a sacrifice. Athena, goddess of wisdom and strategy. The boy is emotionally compromised. He is fighting from a place of rage, not tactics. A fatal error. Aurelia, goddess of resilient sparks. Inoex. Please don't. She's too strong. You don't have to do this. Loudly crying face. He ignored them. He was so sick of their voices. Then a different blue screen appeared. Main mission issued. Objective. Land one clean hit on Elder Fenna. Reward. +2 level, +50 stat points. 1 X legendary skill box. Failure. Severe injury or death. Just one hit, huh? The system must know he couldn't actually win. 50 stat points for one punch. I can do that. The clearing was full of dark elves now. They stood in a wide circle around the proving ground, their faces a mix of anger and confusion. Jor was on his feet, holding his ribs and glaring at Nox with pure hate. What is the elder doing? One of them muttered. Why is she giving this human the honor of approving? Honor, another one scoffed. She's going to kill him. This is an execution. Mela stood with Syrian at the edge of the clearing. Liessa was beside her, her face pale, but her eyes were fixed on Nox with a strange, intense look. Your human is a complete fool, Liessa said, her voice quiet. Syrian didn't answer. She just watched Nox, her hands clenched so tight her knuckles were white. Hades, god of the underworld, so it begins. The mortal's tantrum will be his end. I have a spot picked out for him already. Athena, goddess of wisdom and strategy. This is tactically indefensible. He has no plan, no strategy. He is letting his emotions dictate his actions. He will be taught a harsh lesson. Mars, god of tactical warfare, a lesson, yes. Or slaughter. But if the boy somehow survives this, if he learns from it, he will be a better warrior for it. The price of that lesson, however, may be his life. Lord of Carnage, H.A. Forget surviving. If he actually lands a hit on her, I'll give him a reward myself. A real weapon, something with some bite to it. Not that stick he calls a sword. Aphrodite, goddess of beauty and passion. Oh, but the passion is the point. The raw, untamed emotion. He's putting it all on the line. It's so tragically heroic. My heart can't take it. Red heart, fire. Fenna stood in the center of the clearing, her posture calm, her hands clasped behind her back. Are you certain you wish to proceed, child? There is no shame in admitting your foolishness. Nox just laughed. Are you going to talk me to death? Come on, old woman. I'm waiting. Her eyes narrowed. You have no respect. A flaw of your entire race. Respect is earned, he shot back. And all you've done is talk down to me since I got here. So no, I don't respect you. The other elves gasped. Mela put a hand over her mouth. No one spoke to the elder like that. Nox, stop, Syrian whispered from the side, but he couldn't hear her. Finna's calm expression didn't change, but he could tell behind that calm expression was anger, just waiting to be released. And what would I have to do to earn your respect, human whelp? She asked, her voice dangerously soft. Beat me, he said with a shrug. Show me that power you're so proud of. Stop acting like you're too good to get your hands dirty. I see, she said. You wish for me to lower myself to your level, to engage in a brawl like a common beast. Yeah, exactly, he said, a grin spreading across his face. I want you to stop being a queen on a throne and start being a fighter. Or are you too old for that? Jor stepped forward from the crowd. Elder, allow me. I will teach this filth his place. Finna held up a hand without looking at him. No, Jor. He wants a lesson. He has challenged me. She turned her full attention back to Nox. And I'm a teacher, by nature. Her hands came out from behind her back. She wasn't holding a weapon. She just beckoned to him with one finger. Come then, child. Your lesson is about to begin. Trickster God Hermes for ooh. The come hither finger. That's a classic. She's gonna mess him up so bad. This is gonna be great. Faced with tears of joy. Aurelia, goddess of resilient sparks, don't do it, Nox. It's a trap. She's trying to make you angry so you'll be reckless. Please just walk away. Loudly crying face. He ignored them. He didn't need their warnings. He knew it was a trap. He knew she was goading him. But he didn't care. He just ran at her, a low growl in his throat. His fist was pulled back, ready to smash that calm look right off her face. She didn't move. She just watched him come, her hands relaxed. Just as his punch was about to hit her, she moved her head a few inches to the left. His fist shot past her face, hitting nothing but air. The force of his own missed punch made him stumble forward. He caught his balance and spun around, swinging his other fist in a wide hook. She took one small step back. The punch missed again. Laughter erupted from the elves watching. Look at him, Jor shouted, his voice full of glee. He swings like a drunken farmer. He can't even touch her. Another one yelled, and more laughter followed. He ignored them and charged again, throwing a flurry of punches, not even aiming, just trying to hit her with pure, raw force. Finna moved like a ghost. She didn't dodge or block. She just shifted her weight, turned her shoulders, or took a tiny step. Each movement was perfect, making his wild attacks look clumsy and slow. He was punching at shadows. Is this the extent of your power, child? She asked, her voice calm as his fist passed an inch from her nose. All rage and no focus. You're an open book, and the story is a short, boring one. Shut up, he snarled, throwing a kick at her legs. She lifted her foot and tapped his shin with the toe of her boot. It wasn't a hard kick, but it hit a nerve. A sharp, electric pain shot up his leg, making his whole limb go numb. He fell, landing hard on one knee. The elves howled with laughter now. He fell. The mighty human, defeated by a love tap. Syrian found it hard to watch. This is not right, she whispered to Mela. Mela didn't answer. She was just staring at Nox, like she was expecting something from him. Liessa, on the other hand, was grinning. Serves him right, the arrogant bastard. Nox pushed himself back to his feet, his leg throbbing. I expected this, but the gap between us really is huge. I wonder how I should approach this. She noticed the shift in his gaze and posture, like he was finally taking this seriously. He summoned his sword, the sunstone blade, and a dark energy immediately coated the bright metal. The blade's normal warm glow was snuffed out, replaced by a black, light-sucking aura. He activated his weapon skill. Let's try that again. The laughter from the crowd died. What is that? One of them whispered. He's tainting the sword. Jor pushed himself up, holding his ribs. What trick is this, human? Finna's calm expression tightened. She saw the change in the sword, the shift in his posture. He wasn't the angry kid from before. This was a fighter. Your lesson isn't over, child, she said. He didn't answer. He lunged, the black sword a straight, clean line aimed for her throat. It was a simple, perfect thrust. There was no wasted motion, no sign of his earlier rage. Finna's eyes widened a little. She couldn't just step aside. The attack was too direct, too fast. She brought her hand up, the air in front of her palm hardening into an invisible wall. Clang! The black sword slammed into the invisible wall with a loud clang that echoed through the clearing. The force of the impact sent a tremor up Nox's arm, but Finna didn't even budge. She hadn't moved a muscle, just held her hand up like she was stopping a beach ball. The elves in the crowd let out a collective gasp. They had never seen anyone, let alone a human, force the elder to actually defend herself. "Better," Finna said, her voice still calm, but there was a new glint in her eyes. "You have a decent weapon and a little bit of focus now, but your form is still a mess." She flicked her wrist, and the invisible wall of force didn't just disappear. It exploded outward. Nox was thrown backward, tumbling through the air before he landed hard on his back. The wind knocked out of him. "Your footwork is clumsy," she stated, taking a slow step toward him as he pushed himself up, coughing. "You rely on raw power, but your foundation is sand. You have no balance." "Shut up," he gasped, getting to his feet. He was tired of her lectures. He charged again, but this time he was smarter. He didn't go for a direct attack. He used his shadow glide, his movements becoming a fluid, unpredictable dance. He weaved from side to side, his black sword a constant threat, trying to find an angle, an opening. She just watched him, her head tilting slightly. She was like a statue in the middle of a storm, completely unmoved by the chaos around her. "You telegraph your attacks a full second before you make them," she said, sidestepping a wide slash that cut a deep gouge in the ground where she was standing. "I can read your intent in the shift of your shoulders, in the way you breathe." He gritted his teeth and used Void Step, vanishing and reappearing right behind her, his sword aimed for her back. She didn't even turn around. A thick, gnarled root shot out of the ground, wrapping around his ankle and yanking him off his feet. He hit the ground face first. The elves were silent now. The earlier laughter was gone, replaced by a tense, focused awe. This wasn't an execution anymore. This was a lesson, and the human, impossibly, was still in the class. "He's learning," Mayla whispered, her hand gripping the hilt of her own weapon. "Every time she knocked him down, he gets back up, and he's better." Liessa just stared, her mouth slightly open. The arrogant boy she had fought was gone. This was something else. Nox spit a mouthful of dirt from his mouth and pushed himself up again. He was pissed, yeah, but underneath the anger, something else was stirring. He was getting better, and everyone could see it. Fenna just stood there, her hands still clasped behind her back. She hadn't even broken a sweat. She was like a force of nature, and he was just a kid throwing rocks at a hurricane. "You are resilient. I will grant you that," she said, her voice calm. "But resilience is not victory. You cannot win." "Didn't ask." He grunted and charged again. He wasn't just swinging wildly anymore. He was watching her feet, the subtle shift of her shoulders, the rhythm of her breathing. She was a fortress, but even a fortress had patterns. He feinted high with his sword, then dropped low, sweeping the black blade at her ankles. She lifted one foot, letting the sword pass harmlessly underneath, and then brought her heel down on top of his blade, pinning it to the ground. The casual, effortless strength behind the move sent a painful jolt all the way up his arm. Before he could pull it free, her other foot lashed out in a simple, elegant kick that connected squarely with his chest. It wasn't a powerful blow, but it was perfectly placed. The air left his lungs in a rush, and he was sent stumbling backward, his sword wrenched from his grip. He landed on his ass, coughing and trying to get his breath back. "You are predictable," she said, not even looking at his sword, which was still pinned under her foot. "You see an opening, and you commit everything to it. A true warrior knows that the most obvious path is always a trap." He looked up at her, his vision a little blurry. This isn't working, he thought, a wave of pure, simple clarity washing over him. He wasn't a swordsman. He wasn't some noble knight from a storybook. All that training he'd imagined, all that focus on form and technique, it was just him playing a part, trying to be something he wasn't. He was a brawler, a fighter who'd learned to survive by being unpredictable and mean. He needed something that felt right in his hand. Not a sword. Something blunt. Something brutal. A slow, humorless grin spread across his face. How ridiculous. He let the sunstone blade dematerialize, its dark aura fading as it vanished back into his inventory. He stood up, relaxed, and held out his hand. The dark energy bled from his palm, swirling and condensing with a low hum. It wasn't forming a sharp edge this time. It was taking a familiar, simple shape. A long, black metal pipe materialized in his grip. It looked just like the one he'd used back at the school, the one he'd bashed those dog monsters with, but this one was different. It was forged from the void, sleek and seamless. He spun it once, the movement easy and familiar, like he was just spinning a pencil in class. He tapped the end of it on the ground, just to test the weight. "Hell yeah," he said, his voice filled with excitement. "Now we're talking." The crowd of dark elves, who had been enjoying the show, now just looked confused. "A pipe," Jor muttered. "He gives up a sword for a pipe?" The human has finally lost his mind. Finna's calm expression finally shifted. Her eyebrows drew together in a look of pure, academic disdain. She had been teaching him a lesson about form, about balance, about the art of combat. And his response was to summon a crude club. It was an insult to the very idea of a proper fight. The god Chad, of course, had plenty to say. Baron von Cynic, oh, this is just sad. He's devolved from a clumsy swordsman to a common thug with a stick. What's next? Is he going to start throwing rocks? Lord of Carnage, yes. Forget the fancy swordplay. This is what I'm talking about. Get back to your roots, kid. Brawling is in your blood. Crack some skulls. He didn't give a damn about any of them. He just hefted the pipe, the weight feeling perfect, natural. He looked at Finna, who was still standing there with that look of disapproval. "You done lecturing?" he asked, his voice dripping with a lazy confidence he hadn't felt before. "Or are you going to keep standing there looking like I just took a dump on your favorite rug?" Her eyes narrowed. "Your vulgarity is as crude as your choice of weapon, child." "Yeah, well, let's see how your fancy footwork handles crude," he shot back. And then he vanished. When he vanished, it wasn't a trick of speed. One moment, he was there, leaning on his black pipe. The next, he was gone. Finna's eyes, which had been full of disdain, narrowed. She felt a whisper of displaced air behind her. She didn't turn. A thick, thorny root, as wide as her arm, erupted from the ground right where she stood, coiling around her body like a protective serpent. Bam! The pipe slammed into the root with a heavy, dull thud. The impact sent splinters of wood flying, but the root held firm. He reappeared a few feet away, the pipe resting on his shoulder. "So, you do know how to do more than just talk," he said, his grin wide. Her gaze was cold. The root receded back into the earth without a sound. A crude ambush. Predictable. "Yeah, well, it's a start," he replied. He didn't wait for her to lecture him again. He charged, but this time it was different. He didn't run in a straight line. He used shadow glide, his body moving in a low, fluid rush. The hard-packed earth of the proving ground seemed to have no friction under his boots. He was a dark blur, weaving from side to side. "He's faster now," Jor muttered from the sidelines, clutching his broken ribs. "This is nothing," Liessa scoffed, but she couldn't take her eyes off the fight. The way the human moved, it wasn't clumsy anymore. He swung the pipe in a wide, horizontal arc aimed at Finna's legs. At the same time, he stomped his foot on the ground. A cloud of dirt and dust billowed up, obscuring her vision. A simple trick, but it might work. It didn't. Finna didn't even seem to look. She simply stamped her own foot. The ground in front of her rippled. A solid wall of packed earth, 3 feet high, shot up from the ground, intercepting his attack. The pipe hit the wall with a deafening boom. The earthen barrier cracked and crumbled, but it absorbed the full force of the blow. Through the dust, he saw her hand move. The ground beneath his feet turned soft, muddy. His forward momentum became a clumsy slide, his feet sinking into the suddenly swampy earth. She's controlling the damn ground? She was on him in an instant. Her movement was not a rush, it was a glide. She appeared before him, her palms striking out not at his head or chest, but at the pipe he was still holding. It was a light tap, but it was infused with her mana. The force traveled up the pipe and into his hands, a sharp, numbing shock that felt like being hit with a taser. His fingers went numb, and he lost his grip. The pipe flew from his hands, end over end, before landing in the mud a dozen feet away. She took a step back, her hands once again clasped behind her. "You're not fighting me, child. You're fighting the forest. It is a battle you have already lost." He just stared at his empty hands, then at her. The crowd of elves started laughing again, their confidence returning. He lost his weapon. Now she will finish him. Syrian watched, her heart pounding. "He's being completely outclassed," she whispered. Malon nodded, her face grim. "My mother's not even trying. She is teaching him." Nox ignored the noise. He ignored his numb hands. He just looked at Fenna. A low laugh rumbled in his chest. "You think that was my only weapon?" He activated Primal Void. The dark, smoky energy poured from his lips again as he crouched low. He slammed his fists into the muddy ground. The ground around him exploded. He used the raw, physical power of his new strength, sending a shockwave through the mud. Chunks of dirt and rocks flew everywhere, a messy, chaotic explosion. Fenna shielded her face with an arm as mud splattered against her. For the first time, a flicker of annoyance crossed her features. He used the chaos. He charged through the shower of dirt, his body a low, powerful projectile. He wasn't aiming for her. He was aiming for the trees. With a roar, he shoulder-checked one of the massive, scarred trees at the edge of the clearing. Crack! The tree, which had stood for centuries, groaned and splintered. It wasn't enough to knock it down, but a huge, thick branch was torn loose and came crashing to the ground. "He's destroying the proving ground," an elf shouted in alarm. Without hesitating, he heaved the massive branch up. It was as long as he was tall and thick as his waist, but in his primal void state, he lifted it like it was a baseball bat. "You want to fight using the forest?" he yelled, his voice a raw-throated growl. "Fine, I'll just break it." He swung the tree branch like a club. It was a crude, clumsy attack, but the sheer size and weight of it was terrifying. It scythed through the air, aimed right where Fenna was standing. She sighed, a sound of pure disappointment. She didn't move back. She just raised one hand. The massive branch stopped dead, an inch from her palm, held in place by an invisible wall of force. Nox strained, his muscles burning as he tried to push it forward, but it wouldn't budge. It was like trying to push a mountain. "Brute force is the tool of the desperate," she said, her voice calm. She closed her hand into a fist. The branch in his hands imploded. It didn't just break. It disintegrated into a cloud of sawdust and splinters that rained down around him. He was left standing there, his arms outstretched, holding nothing. Welp, he thought, the adrenaline-fueled rage finally starting to fade. "That's it. I've got nothing left." He had tried speed, tricks, and raw power. None of it had worked. None of it had even come close. Fenna decided the lesson was over. She moved. Her hand chopped down, a simple, elegant motion. It hit the side of his neck, right on the pressure point. His vision went white. The strength left his body in an instant, and his primal void skill deactivated. His legs gave out from under him. He was falling, the world going dark around the edges. He was completely out. Fenna watched him fall, her expression unchanging. She had used just enough force to render him unconscious. The lesson was complete. She moved to catch him, to prevent the boy from injuring himself further in the fall. But as her hands reached for him, his eyes, which had been closed, snapped open. They weren't his eyes. They were glowing pits of cold, abyssal light. It wasn't a conscious thought. It was his skill, will of the abyss, refusing to surrender. It was the last, desperate twitch of a cornered animal. His body, which was limp and falling, spasmed. He launched himself upward in a clumsy, reflexive leap. It wasn't an attack. It was just a reaction. His knuckles, from his still clenched fist, brushed against her chin. It was a faint, feather-light touch. A graze. A clean hit. Then the light in his eyes died. His body went completely slack, and he collapsed to the ground in a boneless heap, finally and truly unconscious. Silence. The entire proving ground was silent. The elves, who had been ready to cheer, just stared. Fenna stood frozen in place. Her hand slowly, almost hesitantly, rose to her chin. Her fingers traced the spot where his knuckles had touched her. She looked down at the unconscious boy on the ground. Her face was a mask of pure, absolute shock. He had lost. He had been utterly, completely, and educationally defeated. And yet, he had won. Knox opened his eyes. He wasn't in the proving ground anymore. He was floating in an endless, empty gray space. There was no ground, no sky, just a featureless void that stretched on forever. He tried to move, but his body felt heavy and slow, like he was trapped in thick syrup. Then he saw the eye. It was bigger than a car, a massive orb of molten gold with a slit of a pupil that was a crack of pure darkness. The eye blinked, a slow, world-ending movement, and he realized it was attached to a face covered in scales that were each the size of a dinner plate, a snout so vast he could have parked a truck inside one of its nostrils. He was looking at a dragon. The sheer pressure of its presence was a physical weight, crushing him from all sides. His lungs felt tight, and a cold sweat broke out on his skin. This was nothing like Fenna's power. Her power was a mountain, something ancient and unmovable. This was a universe. It was an existence so far beyond his own that his mind could barely even process it. What the hell is this overwhelming presence, he thought, his mind struggling to form a coherent thought. A voice rumbled through the gray void, a sound so deep and powerful that it vibrated in his very bones. So, the little insect awakens. The dragon's massive head moved a fraction of an inch closer, and the universe seemed to tilt. Its golden eye focused on him. He felt like a bug under a magnifying glass. "You have something of mine, human." Its voice echoed, each word a peal of thunder. "Something precious. Something you could not have possibly obtained through your own meager power." Knox's mind raced. Something of its... was it talking about? "I came here to extinguish your insignificant life and reclaim what was stolen," the dragon continued, its voice a low, terrifying growl. "I came for my child." It clicked. There was only something in his possession that fits that description. The egg from Aurelia. This thing was its mother. He was about to die because of a gift. He tensed, his corrupted mana coiling instinctively in his chest, a pathetic little snake preparing to strike at his son. He knew it was useless. He couldn't fight this. He couldn't even run. The dragon's massive snout lowered, its hot breath washing over him like the blast from furnace. "That was goal when I came here." It paused, its golden eye narrowing slightly. "But then I saw something amusing." It leaned in even closer, its voice dropping to a conspiratorial rumble. "I watched you, little anomaly. I watched you challenge the elf elder. You were outmatched, outclassed in every conceivable way. You were a gnat trying to fight a storm." A strange, deep chuckle vibrated through the void. "And yet, you did not break. You were beaten, humiliated, but your will, it did not bend. Even as your body failed, you landed a hit. A pathetic, meaningless touch, but a hit nonetheless." It pulled back slightly. "That interested me. Your will is stronger than your body, stronger than your power. You have a darkness in you, a cold, hard thing that refuses to die. Perhaps that is why the egg found its way to you." Knox just floated there. What is it getting at? "So I have changed my mind," it declared. "Killing you would be a waste of an interesting specimen. Instead, I will offer you a contract." "A contract? You will become the guardian of my child," it explained. "You will protect the egg. You will see that it hatches, and that the hatchling is kept safe. You will be its vessel, its protector, until it is strong enough to stand on its own." He stared. "And what do I get out of it?" The words came out before he could stop them, a flash of his usual defiant arrogance. The dragon's massive eye seemed to crinkle at the edges, a terrifying approximation of a smile. "You get to live," it said simply. "And perhaps, if you do your duty well, you will earn a reward worthy of my gratitude. A scale from my hide, a drop of my blood. Such things could remake a mortal like you." He thought about it. It wasn't a choice. It was a command disguised as an offer. Refuse, and he was dead. Accept, and he was a glorified babysitter for a god dragon's unborn kid. But he would be a living babysitter. "And if I agree," he asked, "then our contract will be sealed," it said. "A mark will be placed upon you, a brand that will declare to all who can see it that you are under my watch. It will protect you from those who would try to take the egg by force, and it will allow me to observe my child's progress through your eyes. It was a leash, then, a way for this cosmic monster to keep tabs on him, but was also a shield. He looked at the golden eye, at the universe of power swirling within it. He had no other move to make. Fine, he said. I accept. Excellent. The dragon's claw, impossibly large, moved towards him. A single, sharp point of light flared on the tip. It touched the back of his hand. A searing pain shot up his arm. It was a pain that went beyond physical, branding his very soul. He cried out, his voice swallowed by the endless gray. Then, everything went black. His eyes opened. The first thing he felt was a heavy weight on his wrists. He looked down and saw thick, black chains. They were connected to the stone wall behind him. He was sitting on a cold floor in a small, dark room. Chains? Seriously, he thought, his head aching. He remembered the dragon in that gray place, the contract, and the pain. He looked at the back of his right hand. A new mark was there. It was a black tattoo of a dragon's eye, and it felt a little warm. He tried to pull at the chains. They were heavy and didn't budge. He focused on them, his mind quiet. Void gaze. A blue screen that only he could see appeared. Ashen forged shackles, rare. Description: chains forged by Ashen elf smiths. They are enchanted to suppress mana. Weakness: the locking mechanism is old and can be broken with enough force. Suppress mana. Huh? And a weak lock. He felt the corrupted mana inside him. It was quiet, but it was still there. The chains made it feel heavy, hard to use. The door to the room creaked open. Elder Finna walked in. She stood there for a moment, her eyes looking at him. Mela was right behind her, but she looked worried. You are awake? Human, Finna said. Her voice cold. Yeah, I'm awake, Nox said. He rattled the chains on his wrists. No thanks to these things. A little heavy for my taste. Finna's cold expression did not change. Do not play games with me, human. I am not in the mood. She walked closer, her steps making no sound. She stopped just out of his reach. I will ask you one more time, she said, her voice low and dangerous. How did you know about the Great Root? Who are you working for? Is it Gorik? This again? He thought, a bored look on his face. She's really stuck on this Gorik guy. He just shrugged his shoulders, the movement making the chains clank. I already told you. I just felt it. Your big tree is sick. It's rotting from the inside. He looked her right in the eyes. The real question is, what are you going to do about it? Or are you just going to let your whole village die? Her eyes narrowed. Insolence, she hissed. A child like you cannot feel the lifeblood of the forest. You are lying. She moved faster than he expected. Her hand shot out and grabbed his jaw, her grip like cold iron. She forced his head up to look at her. Tell me the truth, or I will crush your skull and pull the answer from your pathetic soul myself. He didn't flinch. He just met her angry gaze with his own cold one. Go ahead and try, old woman. Mela took a step forward. Mother, please. Finna ignored her daughter. Her grip on his jaw tightened. But as she did, Nox raised his right hand to grab her wrist, to push her away. And that's when she saw it. On the back of his hand, there was a new mark that had not been there before. It was a complex tattoo, inked in a black so deep it seemed to absorb the light of the room. It was the image of a dragon's eye, its pupil a vertical slit of pure darkness. Finna froze. Her grip on his jaw went slack. She wasn't looking at his face anymore. Her entire attention was fixed on a mark on his hand. A faint pressure, an overwhelming power, seemed to radiate from the tattoo. It was a power so immense that it made the mana inside her own body feel small and insignificant. What is that brand? She thought, her mind going completely blank with shock. The sheer weight of that presence. It's impossible. It can't be. She let go of his jaw and stumbled back a step, her eyes wide. The cold authority she had held just a moment ago was gone, replaced by a look of pure, disbelieving awe. Nox just watched her reaction. He lowered his hand, a small, knowing smirk on his face. So she can feel it. Mother? What is it? Mela asked, seeing the look on her mother's face. She looked at Nox's hand and saw the tattoo, but she couldn't understand its meaning. She just knew it had shaken her mother to the core. Finna didn't answer. She just stared at him, her gaze moving from the mark on his hand to his eyes, as if seeing him for the first time. The human whelp she had seen as an insignificant pest was something else entirely, something far more dangerous and far more important. Where, she began, her voice was no longer cold. It was quiet, and it trembled just a little. Where did you get that mark? Knox leaned his head back against the wall. He held up his hand, admiring the dragon's eye as if it were a new piece of jewelry. A new acquaintance, he said, his voice casual. She thought I was interesting. Gave me a little gift. A gift, she thought. Her heart was beating fast now. A gift from a being with that level of power? Who is this boy? She had thought he was a tool of Gorik, a minor annoyance. She had been so wrong. Gorik was a child playing with mud compared to the power represented by that brand. The contract with the dragon was a leash, but it was also a shield. And Fenna was smart enough to see the shield. She looked at Knox, at the heavy, mana-suppressing chains on his wrists, and then back at the brand on his hand. She felt a sudden, cold sweat on her skin. Chains. We put chains on a being watched by that. The implications were terrifying. Mela, she said, her voice still quiet but now full of a new, sharp urgency. Take off his chains. Mela just stared at her, confused. Mother? But he... Now, she commanded. Her voice was sharp, making Mela flinched. She hurried to obey, fumbling with the keys at her belt. She unlocked the heavy shackles on Knox's wrists. They fell to the floor with a loud clang. He rubbed his wrists, stretching his fingers. He didn't say anything. He just watched Fenna, a small, triumphant smile on his face. The power dynamic in the small, dark room had just completely flipped, and they all knew it. There, that's better, he said, rubbing his wrists. He looked at Fenna, who was still staring at him with a look of awe and fear. Now, like I said before, you need to chill out. Mela flinched at his informal tone, but Fenna didn't seem to notice. Her mind was still trying to process the immense power she felt from the brand on his hand. I'm not going to do anything bad, he continued, his voice calm. I'm not here to burn down your treehouse or whatever it is you're scared of. He took a step forward, and Fenna instinctively took a step back. He stopped. I just want to know about this force, he said. Her eyes widened slightly. What force? The one that's killing your great root, he clarified, his smirk disappearing. This corruption you're so worried about. I want to know everything. What it is, where it came from, and what it's doing to your forest. The question surprised her. She had been so focused on him being a threat that she hadn't considered he might be interested in their problem for another reason. The pieces started to connect in her mind in a new, terrifying way. The boy's mysterious appearance, his impossible knowledge of the rot, and now, the brand of a cosmic being on his hand. Is this a test? She thought, her blood running cold. Did his patron send him here to see how we would handle this crisis? Do we just fail by throwing him in chains? The thought made her feel sick. Why? She asked. Her voice was much softer now, almost respectful. Why do you want to know about the rot? What interest could a human possibly have in the affairs of our people? He just looked at her, his expression unreadable. He had her right where he wanted her. She was scared, and she was ready to talk. He didn't need to give her a real reason. I have my own reasons, he said, his voice flat and final. That's all you need to know. She nodded slowly, accepting his answer without any more questions. She could not afford to question a being who carried such a mark. Very well, she said. I will tell you what we know. She turned to Mela, who was still standing by the door, looking completely lost. Leave us, daughter. What we are about to discuss is not for your ears. Mela looked from her mother to Knox, her expression full of confusion and worry. But she didn't argue. She just bowed her head. Yes, mother. The heavy door clicked shut, and the sounds from the village vanished. It was just the two of them now, with the quiet crackle of the fire pit between them. Fenna walked over to one of the simple wooden chairs and sat down, her earlier anger replaced by a deep, weary concern. She gestured to the chair opposite her. Sit, she said. Her voice was still commanding, but the edge was gone. He sat, leaning forward and resting his elbows on his knees, his eyes fixed on her. So, he started, you were saying something about a dying tree. She let out a long breath, her gaze lost in the flames for a moment. "It is not just the tree," she began, her voice low. "The great root is the heart of this forest. Its sickness is a symptom of a larger problem, a rot that has been spreading for a long time." "How long is a long time?" "For over 100 of your years," she said. "It started subtly, a patch of trees that would wither for no reason, a stream that would run sluggish and dark. Our chanters could feel it, a coldness in the lifeblood of the woods, a slow, creeping decay." She looked up from the fire, her dark eyes meeting his. "We fought it. We held it back. For generations, it was a stalemate. The rot would advance, and we would push it back. It was a constant struggle, but one we could manage." He just listened, his expression unreadable. "Then," she said, her voice dropping even lower, "about a week ago, everything changed." Knox's focus sharpened. A week ago, he thought. That was the day the world went crazy. The day the system started. "The stalemate broke," she continued, her hands clenching into fists on her lap. "The rot began to spread with a speed we had never seen before. Patches of the forest that were healthy one day were dead the next. Creatures became twisted, more aggressive. The fair wolves you encountered are just one example." "Why?" he asked. "What happened a week ago?" "The mana," she said, a look of frustration on her face. "The very energy of the world. It felt different. It was always a pure, clean stream of power. Now it is tainted, thicker, heavier, impure. This new mana feeds the rot. It accelerates its growth. The forest is choking on it." He just sat there, the pieces clicking into place in his mind. "She's talking about the mana of this world. My world." It wasn't a rot from her world that had gotten stronger. It was her world, or at least a piece of it, that had been dropped into his. This forest was an alien plant trying to survive in the wrong soil. And the soil was poison to it. "They don't even know," he realized, the thought a strange, quiet shock. "They think their world got sick. They have no idea they're not even in their own world anymore." He looked at her, at the powerful elf who was the master of this dying land. She saw a disease, a corruption. She had no idea she was a refugee on a foreign planet. "So you have no idea what caused this change?" She shook her head. "No, it is a blight without a source, a sickness without a cause that we can see." She leaned forward, her gaze intense. "But you saw it. You felt the rot in the great root from a distance. A human should not have that ability. The mark on your hand, your patron, do they know what this is?" He just looked at her, his mind miles away, processing the scale of what had happened. He had thought it was just monsters and dungeons. But whole forests had been pulled across. Entire peoples. "I'm not going to be the one to tell her," he decided. "She's also given me a lot of credit. I also don't know shit. The system is the one that told me." He looked at her again, really looked at her. Past the arrogance and the anger, past the power. She was just a leader trying to keep her people from dying out. It was the same look he'd seen on the faces of people back in the city after the first dungeon broke, a kind of desperate hope mixed with fear. "Sigh," he thought, a wave of annoyance at himself washing over him. "I'm getting soft." He pushed himself out of his chair and walked back to the fire pit, his earlier anger gone, replaced with a feeling he really didn't like. It felt a little like pity. "Look," he said, breaking the silence. "Your way isn't working. Your chanters can't fix it, and all you're doing is watching your home rot around you." Her eyes narrowed. "And you have a solution, human? You, who have been in my forest for 2 days." "Maybe," he said with a shrug. "That power you're so scared of, the foul, uncontrolled thing." He met her gaze. "It might be the only thing that can fight this rot. It's an energy from this world. It understands the poison because it's made of the same stuff." She stared at him, her expression a mixture of deep suspicion and something she didn't want to admit was hope. "You would help us? Why? What do you want in return?" "I want to get out of this forest," he said simply. "And I can't do that if it's full of corrupted monsters trying to eat me. Helping you helps me. It's just a transaction." She studied him for a long, quiet moment, searching his face for any sign of a trick, a lie. But all she saw was a tired kid who seemed to be telling a straightforward, selfish truth, and that, strangely, was more believable than any noble promise. "And you believe you're power, can truly cleanse the rot? I don't know, he admitted honestly. But it's a better chance than you've got right now, isn't it? She was quiet for a bit. He could see the gears turning in her head, weighing her centuries of pride and distrust against the slow death of her people. I will consider your offer, she said finally, her voice stiff. You and the girl will remain here. I will send for you when I have made my decision. She turned her back on him, a clear dismissal. He just shrugged again. Whatever. Take your time. He walked out of her house, not waiting for her to say anything else. Mela was waiting outside, her expression worried. She didn't say anything, just led him back to the small house where Syrian was waiting. When he stepped inside, Syrian looked up, her face full of questions. What happened? What did she say? We talked, he said, closing the door behind him. She's thinking about letting me try to fix her big tree problem. He walked over and sat down on his blanket. And you agree? Yep, he said, leaning back against the wall. He closed his eyes, suddenly feeling exhausted. Just as he was about to drift off, a new window appeared in his vision, its text glowing with a brilliant, almost blinding light. Hidden requirement met. Forge an alliance with the Ashen Elves through negotiation and a display of power, rather than through pure annihilation. Main mission: cleanse the forest. Rewards upgraded. New reward: 300,000 EXP, plus 200 stat points. 1x mythical class specific armor chest. 1x world seed fragment. Title: Warden of the Ashen Glade. His eyes snapped open. He read the new reward list again, and then a third time, just to be sure. 300,000 EXP, 200 stat points, a mythical chest, and something called a world seed fragment. The rewards had been good before. Now, they were insane. Holy shit, he thought, a slow grin spreading across his face. So being nice actually pays off sometimes. Who knew? Knox was leaning on the wall, still shocked by the sudden reward increase. Syrian came out and sat next to him, looking at him with a gentle stare. This human, why do I find myself getting attached to him more and more? While staring, Knox looked over at her. HM, is something wrong? It's nothing at all. Just thinking how much I have changed thanks to you. She leaned back, looking up at the roof. I'm enjoying my time with you. Knox just stared at her confused, but at the same time, his heart felt warm, hearing those words. He just looked away, not sure what to say. Unlike when he's around most people, this elf made him feel soft. It's cool, I guess, he said, looking back at her ankle. About that ankle, I want to try something. My ankle? Try what? She faced him, allowing him to see. I think it's getting better, just a few more days. He didn't say anything. He just carefully reached out and placed his hand on top of her ankle. This mana allows me to heal myself, so I am assuming it detects damage and works automatically. Then would I extend that mana to someone else? This might hurt or feel weird, but bear with it. What dash? Her body tightened up and the mana entered her word. Her vision instantly swam, making her want to puke, but she held on. She trusted him. The mana felt like a thick, cold syrup as it left his hand and sank into her skin. He could feel it, a part of him inside her, and it was a really weird sensation. Through the connection, he could sense the damage in her ankle, a web of hairline fractures and torn ligaments. Okay, it sees the problem, he thought, his own body tense with concentration. Now fix it. Syrian's whole body went rigid. It wasn't a gentle warmth, it was a searing, grinding pain. It felt like her bones were being forcefully snapped back into place by an invisible, angry hand. She let out a choked gasp, her nails digging into the blanket she was sitting on. She could hear a faint, wet cracking sound coming from her own body. Knox felt a sharp echo of her pain through the mana, and it made him flinch. Shit, this is hurting her. A lot. He grit his teeth and pushed more of his energy into her, forcing the process to speed up. He could feel his mana draining away fast, leaving him feeling hollowed out and dizzy. The dark purple and blue bruising on her ankle started to fade, the swelling visibly going down as the corrupted energy did its work. It wasn't a clean healing, it was just a forceful repair. After what felt like forever, he pulled his hand back, breaking the connection. He was breathing a little heavy, sweat beading on his forehead. The intense pain vanished from Syrian's leg, leaving behind a dull, throbbing ache. She stared at her ankle, which looked almost normal again, then looked up at him with wide, shocked eyes. "What was that?" she whispered, her voice a little shaky. It felt. I told you it would be weird," he said, trying to sound casual, but he felt drained. He looked at his own hand, then back at her ankle. It actually worked. She slowly, carefully moved her foot. She wiggled her toes, then flexed her ankle. The sharp, debilitating pain was gone. She put her foot flat on the ground and pushed herself up, using the wall for a little support. She could stand on it. A series of blue screens popped into Knox's vision. "Your skill, Shadow Mend, has been pushed beyond its passive limits through an act of will. New active skill unlocked. Void Stitching, LVL1. Description: channel your corrupted mana into another target to forcefully mend their wounds. The process is painful for the recipient and extremely costly for the user, but highly effective on physical injuries." Syrian took a tentative step, then another. She was a little wobbly, but she was walking. She turned and just stared at him, her expression a mix of awe, confusion, and something else he couldn't quite read. He didn't like the way she was looking at him. It made him feel exposed. "Stop staring at me like that," he grumbled, looking away. "It's creepy." Her stare wasn't creepy, but she looked away anyway, her face feeling a little hot. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice quiet. "It is just, I can still hardly believe it. The pain is completely gone." She took another step, just to make sure it would hold. Knox just grunted, pushing himself off the wall he was leaning on. He walked back to his blanket and sat down, trying to put some distance between them. But she followed, her limp completely gone, and sat on her own blanket a few feet away. "You healed me," she said, her voice full of a genuine awe that made his skin crawl. "A wound that the elder said would take a week to mend. You fixed it in minutes." "It wasn't a proper healing," he muttered, not looking at her. "It's just a patch job." She looked down at her hands, her voice dropping even lower. "I felt your power inside me. It was cold, and the pain was immense." She looked up at him then, and her cheeks were definitely a little pink. "But now, there's a warmth left behind. It feels nice." He finally looked at her, his expression a mix of confusion and annoyance. "Warm? What the hell is she talking about? It's corrupted mana." "Thank you, Knox," she said, her voice soft but clear. She held his gaze, and he saw nothing but real gratitude in her eyes. It was a completely new look from her, and he had no idea what to do with it. He broke eye contact first, looking away at the wall. "Whatever," he mumbled. "It's nothing. Now you can walk, so you won't be slowing me down anymore." She just kept looking at him, a gentle smile forming on her face. "Shit," he thought, feeling his own face get a little hot. "Why is she still smiling at me?" Knox really just wanted to sleep, like actually sleep for a change, but he was wide awake now, thinking, trying to figure things out. What the hell was that shit I felt? And those looks she gave me? I do not understand. And there's that warm feeling again in my chest. He pushed the thoughts away. Thinking about his feelings, yeah, that was a waste of time. It was just a distraction. He needed to be better, stronger, so this never happened again. So the next time some bitch with blades comes at him, she'll just run away. "Say," he blurted out, words just spilling out of his mouth before he really even thought about them. Syrian lifted her head a bit, her ears tilted, catching the sound. She asked, eyes studying him now, like she was trying to read something on his face. He didn't look at her, his gaze focused on the mess of logs and embers. "How old are you?" Her eyebrows went up a little, face showing surprise. That was not the question she had expected. "Why do you ask?" she asked with a slight smile. He shrugged, messing with his sword. "Just wondering." She was silent for a moment. Finally, she answered, voice calm, steady. "I am 21 of your years." 21, he thought, that piece of info going into his mental file with everything else he'd learned about her in the last few days. It didn't really mean anything. Not really. He still did not understand what this warm, sweet feeling was about. He lived most of his life not knowing anyone's age, or really anything about them, not even his classmates. He said quietly, looking at the embers but not really seeing them. She studied his face. "Is that significant?" she asked. Does it change something? He shook his head, finally meeting her gaze. I don't know, he admitted, and that was the simple truth. He didn't know what any of this meant, this warmth, her gentle smile, her thanks. He just didn't get it. But, he continued, a small frown forming on his forehead. You asked me why I wanted to know, right? She nodded, her expression patient. Well, he paused, searching for the right words. I guess. I don't know anything about you. Not really. You're just this elf, you know, who can use magic and fight, and you're nice, I guess. He scowled a little, like that last part was hard to admit. Her smile softened. And you wish to know more? She asked, tilting her head. About me, the elf? He shrugged again, messing with his sword. It was in his hands now, the familiar weight grounding him a little. Yeah, I guess so. I know, like, where you're from. He gestured vaguely, but not you know? Like, what do you even do in your world? What do elves do? She smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes this time. That is a very large question, Nox, she said softly. Elves do many things. She glanced around the small room, then back at him. Perhaps, she said, I could begin with Life Woods. It is where I grew up. You may learn something of me through its description. He looked at her, really looked at her. Her face was serious, but her eyes were warm, and there was that small smile again, tugging at the corners of her mouth. She was actually offering to share something real with him, something from her life. It was a weird feeling. Life Woods, he repeated, testing the sound of the word. It sounded soft, gentle, nothing like the harsh, broken city he knew. Okay, he said, his voice low. Tell me about it. He leaned back against the wall, letting the quiet settle around them. Life Woods was the forest, right? He asked. What, you some kind of princess there? You mentioned a betrayal. Did Gorik live there? It was a genuine question, the first real interest he'd shown in someone else's life, and he was surprised at how much he actually wanted to know. Her smile deepened at his questions, her eyes sparkling a little. It is a vast forest, yes, she said, her voice softer now, almost dreamy. Stretching for leagues, canopied by trees, so old their roots remember the dawn of time. My family ruled that area for generation. It would be too grand to simply say I was a princess. I was the last heir to my home. She paused and took a deep breath. Gorik did not live in Life Woods itself. He lives in a shadow waste far away, but he's the one that put my family to rest. He listened, filing the information away. It gave him something solid to hold on to, a few facts in the swirling mist of her strangeness. But more than that, it was just interesting, something to focus on outside of what level he was, outside of what new skill the system would give him. He glanced at her again, at the silver in her hair, the sharp lines of her ears. It was hard to imagine a place so different from this little stone room, from the broken city he used to know. So, like, what's it made of? He asked, his brow furrowed a little. What's a main tree or something? Oh, an ox, she said, her voice full of a gentle warmth. Life Woods is more than trees, but if I had to choose, it is made by more than one. We call the great tree the eldest. Its trunk is wider than this house, its canopy so dense that the forest floor is cast in perpetual twilight. She paused, her gaze drifting away, her expression far away, as if she could see it in her mind's eye. The great roots drink from hidden springs, and their sap runs with ancient magic. My people revere it as a living god. A living god, he repeated, and this is where he started to zone in, a real quest, a goal. Now he could relate, a worthy foe, power to be taken, not just levels in quest to walk to the north. This was someone's god, and they lost. So if your people had some kind of god tree, but it still got destroyed, he said, his voice flat. What was the point if it couldn't protect you? Her expression darkened a little. The warmth faded from her eyes, replaced by a shadow of pain. He saw her hands clench slightly in her lap. The great tree was not a weapon, Nox, she said, her voice dropping. It was a heart. It gave life, not death. Gora corrupted it. We had many defense, but the tree itself had been tainted, turned against us. The treachery of the humans who guided his hand made us weak. She looked away, her gaze far and sad. He felt a flash of something, a sharp stab of, was it regret? He'd pushed too hard, touched a raw nerve. He hadn't meant to make her hurt, just to understand what it was like for her if she was so powerful to lose. But now, something stirred more, those responsible for the fall of this god, for the hurt in her eyes. He forced the feeling down. That was not the way to live. Not to worry what other people were living. It is a waste of energy. He could fix it by being the best, all by himself. He could take that tree, that god of hers, back. All right, he mumbled, looking away. What else then? What other cool stuff was in your forest? Any monsters? Dungeons? Or just a bunch of elves walking around hugging trees? She tilted her head, her brow furrowed. She seemed to be studying him, trying to see something on his face. The pain had faded from her eyes, but something else was there now, a kind of quiet curiosity. You see only the threats, the challenges, she said softly. You view the world as a battlefield to be conquered, and you look at the tree as a weapon. What of beauty, of kinship, of simply living in harmony with the wood? Her voice held a subtle warmth, a longing that wasn't tinged with any sweetness. It was steel. He shrugged, his gaze fixed on his hands. Why bother? Better to be strong. There would be no betrayals then, right? I don't know anything about that crap, he mumbled. I just want to know what I might have to fight, what kind of level those monsters were, the tree thing, what level was that? It was the only language he knew, the only way he knew how to understand a threat. Syrian's smile softened a little. She saw the question was not just about power, not for him. It was about safety. The monsters of Life Woods are of many kinds, she said. Some like the hounds of Gorik, but others far older. Some are born of mana, some from the very earth. She paused, then looked at his face. But that is not what you wish to ask about, is it, Nox? He shifted, picking at a loose thread on the blanket. He hated that she could see through him, that she knew when he was trying to hide something. Damn it, she's too sharp. That nightmare a few days ago, she continued, her voice lower now. You spoke in your sleep. He stiffened, his jaw tightening. He had told her it was nothing, just a stupid dream. He hated that she remembered. You said a few words, she went on, ignoring his silence, about a school, about people who watched. And you woke with such anger. He looked away, staring into the fire. The heat felt good on his face, but did not warm the coldness in his gut. What was it like, Nox? She asked, her voice insistent. Before this world broke, what was your life like that it brought such anger to your sleep? He did not answer immediately. He picked up a small stick, poking at the embers. He wanted to tell her to shut up, to mind her own business. He wanted to go back to being alone, to not having anyone ask about the parts of him he kept hidden. But then, how long will he keep running from this? How long is he going to push people away when they try to come closer? And besides, Syrian, she's not like the others. It was nothing, he mumbled. Just school, like everyone else's. I do not believe that. You have a strength in you, a hardness that is not born of nothing to... He let out a short, humorless laugh. Hardness? Yeah, I guess so. He snapped the stick he was holding in two, tossing the pieces into the fire. It was just annoying. He paused, then sighed. He did not want to talk about this, but the words felt like they were pushing their way out anyway. Every day, he started, his voice flat, just every single day. There was this guy, Mark, and his friends. They just liked to mess with me. He looked into the flames, the memories flashing in his mind like ugly pictures. They'd push me around, kick me, shove my head in the toilet, laugh about it. He could hear the laughter, even now. It was always loud. No one ever did anything. He continued, his voice getting a little colder. Teachers, other kids, even the goddamn police. They just watched. Or they laughed too. It was always like that. Like I was just background noise. He felt the familiar knot of ice form in his stomach. That feeling of being invisible, of being less than human. So I just stopped caring, he said, shrugging, like it was a simple fact. Stop feeling anything. It was easier that way. She was quiet, listening to him. Her eyes were fixed on his face, but she did not look away. She did not look with pity, just with understanding. That is why you hate humans for what they did to you, she said with a softness in her voice. He nodded. Yeah, something like that. He finally looked at her, his eyes cold. They're all the same. They'll smile to your face, then stab you in the back the second they think you're weak. And you were weak then? She asked, her voice calm, devoid of judgment. He let out a harsh laugh. Pathetic, he said. That's what I was. A pathetic loser who just took whatever they threw at me. He rubbed his hands on his pants. So when this whole world went crazy and I got this power, it just made sense. No more being weak. No more taking crap from anyone. He looked at her. I was going to kill them all, he said, his voice completely flat. Mark, the other kids, the teacher who just laughed. I had the gun. I was going to end it. All of it. She flinched, a small, involuntary movement. But she did not look away. But then a power awakened in me, he continued, ignoring her reaction. And everything changed. Now I can actually fight back. Now I can break things instead of being broken. He felt a familiar surge in his chest, that cold, dark power that felt so right. This is what I am. This is what I was always meant to be. He met her gaze, his own eyes burning with a fierce, unwavering intensity. That's what made me this way, princess. Years of being nobody. And now, I'm something else. She reached out, her hand hovering just over his arm. She did not touch him, but he could feel the warmth from her fingers. You are still human, Knox, she said, her voice soft but firm. And you are more than just power. You saved me. You made them stay, even when you wanted to go alone. He looked away, embarrassed by her words. He did not like being seen like that. She doesn't get it. It's just power. I kept her around because of the mission. You chose to save me, even when you did not have to, she continued. You chose to return for your companions. You did not abandon them. You did not become like the humans who wronged you. He just grunted, not looking at her. He did not know what to say. She pulled her hand back, a smile on her face. You are not a monster. You are a warrior. He looked at her. Her eyes were bright, and her smile was real. It made that strange warmth in his chest come back, stronger this time. It felt good. It felt confusing. This is so messed up. Knox woke up with the sun in his eyes. He blinked, trying to clear the blur, and saw Syrian across the room. She was moving, her body a smooth line as she worked through some kind of elven exercise. Her arms went up, then down, and her feet didn't make a sound on the floor. He just watched for a minute, his head still full of sleep. It was actually kind of addictive to stare at. She stopped then, her chest rising and falling slow. You are awake, she said, her voice quiet. Yeah, he said, pushing himself up. What are you doing? Merely maintaining my readiness, she replied, putting her blade back in its sheath. It is important to keep my body sharp. Guess so, he mumbled, stretching. I'm going to need some coffee. He moved around a bit. Seriously, though, no coffee. The forest does not grow such beans, she said, a small smile on her face. He was about to say something back when a knock came at the door. It wasn't a hard knock, just a few quick raps. The heavy bar on the outside slid back with a scraping sound. The door opened and Mela stood there, but she didn't step inside right away. My mother wishes to speak with you both, she said, her voice formal. She has made her decision. Her eyes went from Knox's face to Syrian, who was now standing by the small window. Then her gaze dropped to the floor, to her feet. Her sentence trailed off. You are walking, she said, her voice full of disbelief. She looked at Syrian's ankle, which was no longer swollen or bruised. But your leg, it was broken. Syrian just nodded. Knox has a gift for mending things. Mela's head snapped toward Knox, her eyes wide with and suspicion. He just shrugged, leaning against the wall and trying to look bored. So he thought. Now, they're all going to be staring at me like I'm some kind of miracle worker. This is going to be annoying. A gift, Mela repeated, her voice quiet. She looked from Knox's blank face to Syrian's calm one. I see. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she seemed to shake herself out of it. Come, my mother is waiting. She turned and led them out. She led them back down the winding path. The other dark elves stopped what they were doing to watch them pass, their faces still hard and full of contempt, but now there was a sign of confusion in their eyes as well. They saw Syrian walking without a limp. Mela kept glancing back at Knox, a look he couldn't quite figure out. He healed her, she thought, her mind replaying the image of Syrian's bruised and swollen ankle. A broken bone fixed in a single night. How? He just stared straight ahead, ignoring the glares. He could feel their eyes on him, and he hated it, reminded him of the old days. Syrian walked beside him, her steps even and sure, as if her injury had never happened at all. She saw the tightness in his jaw, the hard look in his eyes. She moved a little closer, her voice a low whisper. "Knox, just ignore them. It does not matter." "It matters to me," he thought. He didn't like being looked at like he was some kind of animal in a cage. They reached Finna's house, and Mela pushed the door open, stepping aside to let them in. Finna was standing by the fire pit. She looked up as they entered, her expression calm and unreadable. She opened her mouth to speak, but Knox cut her off. "You need to tell your people to back off," he said, his voice flat. "The staring is getting old." Mela flinched, her eyes going wide. She was shocked that the human is still speaking to her mother like that, so causally. Finna's eyes flicked to his arm, her face still calm, but her fingers tight on the stick in her hands. She didn't raise her voice, just said, "I'll speak to my people later about the staring." Syrian caught the quick glance, her own eyes dropping to Knox's hand. She finally noticed the tattoo. When did he get that? It wasn't there before, she thought, her stomach twisting a little. And why's the elder acting like it's a threat? Knox leaned back against the wall, his arms crossed, the tattoo now hidden under his sleeve. "Good. They keep gawking, I might start swinging." His voice was flat, but there was an edge to it, like he meant it. Mela just stared, her mouth slightly open. She's not even angry. He threatened her people, and she's just calm. "I have made my decision," she said, her voice quiet but clear. "I will allow you to approach the Great Root." Syrian's eyes went from the tattoo on Knox's arm to Finna's face. The elder wasn't making a concession. She was speaking to him like an equal, or maybe even something more. It's the mark, she realized. She's not afraid of him. She's afraid of what's watching him. Knox just pushed himself off the wall. "About time," he said. "Your forest is dying, and you're wasting time talking." Mela flinched again, but Finna didn't react to his tone. "There is a condition," she stated, her dark eyes fixed on him. "I will accompany you. I will observe your methods myself. Whatever, as long as you don't slow me down. I will not be the one slowing us down. Human," she said, her voice turning cold again for a moment. Syrian stepped forward. "I will go as well." Finna's gaze shifted to her. "You are still injured." "Knox healed her," Mela blurted out, then immediately looked like she regretted speaking. Finna's eyes narrowed, her attention snapping back to Knox. He just met her gaze, his expression bored. She looked at him for a long, quiet moment, the unasked questions hanging in the air. "I see," she said finally, though it was clear she didn't. She turned back to Syrian. "Very well. You may come. It is better you are where I can see you." She then looked at her daughter. "Mela, you will remain here. Keep the patrols vigilant, but tell them to hold their distance from the Great Root. No one is to approach." "Yes, mother," she said with a bow of her head. "We leave now," she announced, turning towards the door. The rot does not wait. Knox just grunted and followed her out, not giving anyone a second glance. Syrian hesitated, then fell in a step behind him, her mind still trying to make sense of the dragon's eye on his hand. Finally getting to start this mission. "Wait for me, sweet EXP." They moved through the forest like ghosts. Finna led the way, her dark form a blur as she leaped from one massive branch to the next without a sound. Syrian followed, her own elven grace making the high-speed chase look easy. Finna glanced back over her shoulder, not surprised at all that Syrian was keeping pace. But the human, that was a different story. He wasn't just keeping up, he was moving with a fluid ease that was completely unnatural for his kind. His feet found purchase on the slick bark as if he was born in the trees, and his movements were so quiet it was unsettling. "How is this possible?" she thought, a flicker of genuine shock passing through her. "He moves like one of us." Knox saw her look back, and a cocky smirk spread across his face. He pushed a little of his mana into his legs, his shadow glide skill kicking in. He accelerated, a dark shape that flowed through the canopy, and easily caught up to her. For a moment, he was right beside her, and then he was past her, landing on a branch ahead before she did. He looked back at her and gave her a small, challenging nod. Her eyes narrowed, not with anger, but with a new, grudging respect. This boy was a walking contradiction, an unending well of surprises. Just as he was enjoying the look on her face, the god Chad exploded in his vision. He noticed there were a bunch of new names, gods with impressive titles who had clearly shown up for the main event. Zeus, king of Olympus. So this is the mortal anomaly. He has a certain intensity. Odin, the All-Father. His will is a blade forged in suffering. A dangerous combination. He walks a path between ruin and glory. But the chat's attention wasn't on the new arrivals. All eyes were on one name that was now glowing with a brilliant, bloody red light. Lord of Carnage. A deal is a deal. I'm a god of my word. The other gods went quiet, their focus snapping to the god of war. Trickster god Hermes for, Papa Carnage is here to pay up. What's he gonna get? A new stick? Faced with tears of joy. Lord of Carnage, the whelp won the bet. He landed a hit. The reward is his. A new screen opened in front of Nox, separate from the chat. It was a single, massive notification, its border wreathed in roaring, animated flames. You have earned the favor of the Lord of Carnage. Reward granted. Soulbound weapon. The Brutalizers. Description: a pair of Cestus-style gauntlets forged in the heart of a dying star. They feed on a user's fighting spirit and corrupted mana, increasing in power with every blow landed. They are not just weapons. They are an argument, and they only speak the language of violence. Item has been placed in your inventory. His eyes went wide. Cestus gauntlets? Forged in a dying star. He had been joking when he fought with his fist before, just messing around. But this was a real weapon, a gift from the god of war himself, and it was made for a brawler. It was made for him. We are here. Fenna's voice cut through his thoughts. He dismissed the screen and looked down. They had arrived at a place where the forest felt sick. The trees were massive, older than anything he had seen before, but their leaves were a sickly yellow and thick, black veins pulsed on their bark like infected wounds. The air smelled of decay and something else, a faint, bitter coldness that had nothing to do with the temperature. In the center of it all was the great root. It was a colossal thing, a knot of wood as big as a building, half buried in the earth. But it was covered in the same black, pulsating veins, and a dark, oily sap leaked from cracks in its surface, poisoning the ground around it. The thing wasn't just sick, it was dying, and it was taking the whole forest with it. Syrian gasped, her hand going to her mouth. The sight was a violation, a beautiful thing made ugly by a foul disease. Fenna's own face was full of sadness. This was her home, her responsibility, and it was rotting before her very eyes. Nox just looked at it. His void gaze skill activated on its own, and he saw past the physical rot. He saw the core of the problem, a swirling knot of chaotic, hungry energy deep within the root. It was a parasite feeding on the lifeblood of the forest. This is the heart of the rot, Fenna said. We have tried to cleanse it, but our magic is repelled. It only feeds the darkness. I can feel its pain, Syrian said, her own eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Nox didn't feel pain. He didn't feel sadness. He looked at the swirling nexus of dark energy, at the immense power it held, and he felt only one thing: hunger. He took a step forward, a slow, predatory grin spreading across his face. Fenna put a hand on his shoulder. Wait, human, do not be reckless. To touch the rot directly is to invite its corruption into your own soul. He just shrugged her hand off. My soul's already a lost cause, old woman. He didn't wait for another warning. He walked right up to the massive, dying root, the ground squishing under his boots. He reached out and placed his hand flat against one of the pulsating black veins. Time to eat. The dark energy of the rot pulsed under his palm, a chaotic symphony of power and pain. It felt incredible, like an all-you-can-eat buffet of pure, corrupted energy just waiting for him. He could feel his own mana stirring in response, hungry and eager. This was it. This was the shortcut to the next level of power. He focused his will, ready to activate his void assimilation skill, ready to take a huge bite out of this dying god tree. Just as he was about to dig in, a clean blue screen slammed into his vision. its text simple and shockingly direct. Why do you not speak with me? You did that one time. Was it not helpful? He froze. His focus shattered. He pulled his hand back from the pulsating black vein as if he'd been burned, stumbling back a step. Finna and Syrian both tensed at his sudden movement. What is it? Finna demanded, her eyes narrowed. Did the rot try to claim you? Syrian took a step forward, her hand near her own sword. Nox, are you all right? He didn't answer them. He didn't even hear them. He was just staring at the blue screen, his mind reeling. The system. It had been quiet since he'd first talked to it, just a passive interface. Now it was asking him a question. A real, personal question. I've been a little busy, he shot back in his mind, the thought laced with pure annoyance. Fighting for my life tends to take up a lot of my time. What do you want? My analysis indicates your current course of action is suboptimal. Suboptimal, he thought, scoffing. It's a giant battery of corrupted mana. It's a jackpot. What could be better than this? The energy of the Great Root is not contained. It bleeds into the surrounding forest. This leakage has acted as a catalyst, corrupting the native fauna. These creatures are now saturated with a higher density of power. A new line of text appeared, and it made his breath catch in his throat. Killing the Great Root now will sever this connection. The corrupted creatures will lose their power source and either perish or revert to their weaker forms. The potential experience points would be lost. He stared at the words. Lost EXP. The two most horrifying words in any language. The idea was a physical pain. All those supercharged monsters, all those potential levels, just vanishing because he was impatient. You're telling me this whole forest is basically a limited-time event zone full of elite mobs, he thought, a slow, predatory grin spreading across his face. And I was about to turn off the event. That is an accurate, if crude, summary. Nox, answer me, Finna demanded, her patience wearing thin. What did you feel? He turned, the grin still on his face. It was not a friendly look. It was the look of a wolf that had just been shown a field full of fat sheep. I'm not going to do it, he announced. Finna and Syrian just stared at him. You are not going to do what? Syrian asked. The tree, he said, hooking a thumb back at the colossal, rotting root. I'm not fixing it. Not yet. Finna's face hardened. Do not play games, boy. You made an offer. And I'm changing the terms, he shot back. He walked away from the Great Root, his new confidence a tangible thing. This rot, this corruption, it's like a disease, right? And this tree is the heart of the infection. That is a simple way of putting it, yes. Well, you don't cure a disease by just cutting out the heart, he lied, the idea forming in his mind, clean and believable. The infection is still in the body. It's in all the other things it's touched. He gestured vaguely at the dark woods around them. Those fair wolves, the spiders, they're like symptoms. Lesser tumors. If I just kill the big one here, the smaller ones might just keep growing, feeding on whatever scraps are left. The infection could come back. He saw the logic land in her eyes, a sign of understanding mixed with her deep suspicion. My plan is better, he continued, his voice full of a false strategic wisdom given to him by the system. I need to hunt down the strongest of the corrupted creatures first. Cut out all the other tumors. Weaken the rot's hold on the whole forest. Then, when it's isolated and has nowhere else to go, I'll come back here and cut out its heart. Syrian looked at him with awe. That is a brilliant strategy. Yeah, he thought. Brilliant for my EXP bar. Finna was silent for a long moment, studying him. She didn't trust him, not for a second. But his plan, as reckless as it sounded, had a brutal logic she couldn't deny. Her chanter's methods had failed. This human, this anomaly, offered a different path, a warrior's path. You would hunt the alpha corruptions? She asked. The beasts that even my strongest warriors avoid? You would do this alone? That's the plan, he said with a shrug. No, she said, her tone final. If you were to undertake this, you will not go alone. You do not know these woods. He was getting annoyed. He thought the old elf was going to tag along and be a pain in the ass. The last thing he needed was her looking over his shoulder, lecturing him about the proper way to punch a monster in the face. So when she spoke, he was ready for an argument. I will remain here, she said, her voice firm. The Great Root requires my presence. I will maintain the wards and monitor the rots spread from its heart. She looked at him. You and the girl will hunt the alphas. He almost smiled. Hell yeah. I will go alone, he said, pushing his luck. She'll just slow me down. Syrian, who had been quiet, took a step forward. I will not, she said, her voice as firm as Fennis. My ankle is healed. I am a warrior of life woods, not a child to be sheltered. She looked at him, a challenge in her eyes. And I believe I can keep up. Fenna nodded once. She is right. You will need a guide. She knows the ways of the forest far better than you. She turned her gaze back to him. Do not fail, human. The fate of my people rests on your strange, violent shoulders. She turned and walked back toward the great root without another word. He just grunted and looked at Syrian. Fine, but if you fall behind, I'm not waiting for you. I would not expect you to, she replied, a small, confident smile on her face. It was awesome. He wanted to go alone, but having Syrian around when she was at 100% wasn't a bad deal. He was actually kind of excited to see what she could really do. They moved through the sick forest for hours. Knox was in the lead, his pace steady and confident. He wasn't just wandering. He was following something only he could see. A faint blue line was showing him the way on the ground, a secret path that was totally invisible to Syrian. It led them through the thickest parts of the woods, avoiding the worst of the dead patches and guiding them toward their first target. Syrian walked a few steps behind him, her movements now as light and sure as his. Her gaze kept drifting to the back of his right hand. That mark, she knew it was a brand, a symbol of a contract with some incredibly powerful being. It explained so much about him, his impossible strength, his strange resilience. But it also raised 100 new questions. She wanted to ask him about it, but she knew it would be pointless. He would just shut her down. He will tell me when he is ready, she decided, her gaze softening as she looked at his back. Or he won't. It does not matter. I made a promise. Knox could feel her watching him, but he didn't care. He was focused. He could feel the air changing, a familiar buzz of power and danger ahead, and he couldn't wait to see what was waiting for them. Almost there, he thought, a slow grin spreading across his face. The system's map showed they were less than a mile away from the first alpha creature. It was time to get ready. He stopped walking. Syrian stopped a few feet behind him. What is he doing? He just held out his hands. Two chunks of dark, heavy metal appeared out of nowhere, slamming into his fists with a loud clang. They weren't just gloves, they were solid blocks of star metal, covered in sharp angles and glowing red lines. They looked like they were made to break things, and just putting them on made his whole body feel like it was humming with power. The brutalizers. They felt perfect. He looked at them, admiring the way they drank the light of the forest. Hell yeah. Syrian just stared at the new weapons on his hands. He summons weapons from nothing, just like I did. Her mind raced. His sponsor, it must be a god. The thought was both terrifying and strangely reassuring. Let's go, he said, and started walking again, the gauntlets feeling like they had always been a part of him. The forest changed again as they got closer. The ground turned wet and swampy, and the trees were all dead and black, like skeletons reaching for the sky. The whole area just felt wrong, and it smelled like rotting plants and mud. In the center of the swampy clearing was a small, murky pond, and the corrupted energy here was so thick it was like wading through invisible sludge. Something huge moved in the water. A massive, fat, ugly toad, bigger than a carriage, pushed itself out of the muck. Its skin was green, covered in pulsating black boils that leaked a dark, oily fluid. It had too many eyes, a cluster of glowing red orbs that all focused on them at once. A long, sticky tongue, tipped with a bony barb, lashed out and snatched a corrupted bird out of the air. Knox grinned. This was what he was searching for. Void gaze. Grotesque croaker, corrupted alpha. Level 45. HP 3500/3500. MP 1000. A mutated amphibian bloated with the forest rot. Its tough hide is resistant to piercing and slashing attacks, and it can spit a highly corrosive acid. Weakness, blunt force trauma. Its soft underbelly is a critical weak point. resistant to slashing. Good thing I have these then. He looked down at the brutalizers on his fists and clenched his hands. The glowing red lines on the gauntlets pulsed a little faster. Syrian drew her own sword, her stance low and ready. "This creature is foul," she said, her nose wrinkled in disgust. "Its hide looks thick. A sword may not be effective." The grotesque croaker let out a deep, wet croak that sounded like rocks grinding together. It turned its cluster of red eyes on them and took a heavy, squelching step forward. Nox just laughed, a sound full of pure, happy violence. He smashed his new metal fists together, creating a shower of red sparks. "Finally," he said, his voice a low growl of anticipation. "My EXP." It let out another deep, wet rumble. It took a step forward, and the whole swampy clearing seemed to shake. Syrian circled to the left, her sword held ready. "Its hide is too tough for my sword," she said. "I will create a distraction." He didn't take his eyes off the monster, a savage grin plastered on his face. "Don't bother," he said. "I've got a better idea." The toad's throat bulged, its fat mouth opening wide. A thick, glowing green glob of acid shot out, arcing through the air right at him. The sizzling sound it made was super nasty. He didn't even try to dodge. Void step. He vanished. The glob of acid hit the spot where he was standing, and the ground just dissolved with a loud hiss, a cloud of foul smoke rising from the new hole. Syrian gasped. Her head whipped around, searching for him. He reappeared right next to the toad's massive, warty leg. He was so close he could smell the rot coming off its skin. "This thing is ugly up close." "Hey, ugly," he yelled. The toad's cluster of red eyes swiveled down to look at him, its expression a weird mix of confusion and anger. Before it could react, he activated his new favorite skill, Primal Void. The dark, smoky energy poured from him, his muscles swelling with a power that felt incredible. He pulled his fist back and drove it straight into the toad's fat, warty knee. The impact wasn't a crack, it was a boom. The brutalizer gauntlet flared with red light, and the toad's leg just exploded in a shower of green goo and shattered bone. The massive creature let out a scream that was more like a gurgle, its whole body tipping sideways. It crashed to the ground with a huge splash, sending a wave of stinking swamp water across the clearing. Syrian just stared, her mouth slightly open. The fight with Finna, it wasn't a defeat. It was training. He had learned. He was no longer just charging in with blind rage. He was thinking, using his skills together. He was a real fighter now. Nox stood over the fallen monster, his fist still smoking with dark energy. The toad was trying to push itself up with its other legs, its cluster of eyes blinking in pain and confusion. It opened its mouth again, but it wasn't for acid this time. A long, sticky tongue, tipped with a sharp bone barb, shot out and wrapped around his leg. "Nox!" Syrian yelled. He was yanked off his feet and dragged toward the creature's waiting mouth. He didn't panic. He didn't even look worried. As he was being pulled across the mud, he just swung his other leg around and kicked the toad right in its cluster of eyes. Several of the glowing red orbs popped with a wet squish. The toad screamed, its tongue reflexively letting go. He landed in the mud, but he was already moving, rolling to his feet. "Syria now," he yelled. She didn't need to be told twice. She was already in motion, her sword in hand. But she wasn't aiming for the toad's tough hide. She thrust her blade deep into the swampy ground. "Forest, hear my call. Bind this creature." Thick, thorny vines, as wide as her arm, erupted from the muck. They were black and twisted, fed by the rot of the forest. They snaked around the toad's remaining legs and its body, holding it down against the mud. The creature struggled, but the vines just tightened their grip, the thorns digging deep into its flesh. The toad was pinned. Its soft, pale underbelly was completely exposed. Nox saw his opening. He wasn't just going to hit it. He was going to end it. He crouched low, his body humming with the power of Primal Void. He pushed off, his shadow glide, sending him flying across the clearing. He leaped into the air, right over the thrashing monster. He came down like a meteor, his metal-clad fist aimed right for the center of its soft stomach. "Game over," he growled. His punch connected. The world went white for a second with the sheer force of the impact. The toad's entire body just imploded, a massive explosion of green goo, corrupted energy, and swamp water that shot 50 feet into the air. He landed on the other side of the clearing, his fists still smoking. He was drenched in stinking monster guts, but he was grinning from ear to ear. The vines retracted back into the ground, their job done. The clearing was quiet again, except for the sound of his own heavy breathing. Man, these things are draining. I need to work on my stamina stat. A series of blue screens lit up his vision. Corrupted Alpha defeated. Grotesque Croaker. EXP gained. 25,000. Level up. You are now level 24. All stats increased by 1. You have 5 unallocated stat points. Your skill, Primal Void, has leveled up from Overwhelming a Powerful Foe. Your skill, Void Forging, has leveled up from Spontaneous Combat Application. Item acquired. Core of the Croaker, Alpha. Item acquired. Gland of Corrosive Acid, X3. Item acquired. The Toad King's Wart. Unique crafting material. He dismissed the screens, a feeling of pure satisfaction washing over him. That was a real fight, and he had completely dominated it. He looked over at Syrian. She was standing there, her sword dripping with mud, and she was smiling at him. That was... She started, shaking her head in disbelief. That was incredible. Yeah, he said, the adrenaline starting to fade. It was pretty good. He looked at his gauntlets, then back at her. You did good too, he admitted, the words feeling a little awkward. Those vines were a nice touch. Her smile widened. It seems we make a decent team. Yeah, he said, looking around the swampy, gut-splattered clearing. I guess we do. He pulled up his status screen. He saw the level up notification and the 5 extra stat points waiting for him. 5 points, not bad at all. He knew right away where they had to go. That Primal Void skill was a monster, but it totally drained him. He felt like he could barely stand after the fight. Stamina, he thought, a grin on his face. Need more gas in the tank. He dumped all 5 points into his stamina stat without a second thought. Stamina, 32-37. He felt a deep, solid warmth spread through his chest. It wasn't a huge rush of power, but it was a good feeling like his battery just got a whole lot bigger. I think I will need a bath for a week. Syrian said. Yeah, this stuff stinks, he agreed, trying to wipe some of the goo off his arm, which only smeared it around. He looked at the loot notifications that were still hanging in his vision. A core, some acid glands, and something called the Toad King's Wart. The Toad King's Wart, unique crafting material. Description: a particularly large and potent wart from a corrupted alpha. It is incredibly rubbery and resilient. Can be crafted into an item with high blunt force resistance or extreme bounciness. Bounciness, he thought. What the hell am I going to do with that? Make a super ball. He dismissed the thought and looked at Syrian. We need to find some clean water. This is disgusting. She nodded. I agree. They found a small, clear stream a little way from the swampy clearing. The water was cold and clean, and they spent a few minutes washing the monster guts off their clothes and skin. Nox took off the brutalizer gauntlets, and they dematerialized before they even hit the ground. Syrian watched him, her eyes on his hands. Those new weapons, she said, her voice curious. They are not like your sword. They seem more suited to you. He looked at his own hands, then back at her. Yeah, he said. They feel right. You fought differently this time, she went on, her gaze steady. You used your skills together. You were not just angry. You were a strategist. The old way wasn't working, he said with a shrug, splashing some water on his face. It was true. Finna had taught him a hard lesson. He stood up, his clothes still soaked, but at least clean of guts. Come on, we're wasting daylight. Where are we going? She asked, getting to her feet as well. He looked down. The faint blue line was already there, pointing them deeper into the sick forest. I know the way, he said. They set off again, moving through the trees. Lola stood in the middle of the quiet clearing, the air thick with the smell of blood. She ignored the bodies around her. She pulled the small, dark ore from her pouch and looked at it again. It was still dead. No light, no warmth. Just a cold, empty rock. Every time she looked at it, the knot of ice in her chest got tighter. Layla, you idiot, she thought. You were supposed to be careful. She had followed the faint trail for 2 days, a broken branch here, a scuff mark there. The tracks of a sun elf and a human whelp. They were sloppy, easy to follow. They were in this forest somewhere, and she was going to find them. This was not about Gorik's contract anymore. This was about the cold rock in her hand. A rustle of leaves from above was a dead giveaway. 3 dark shapes dropped from the high branches, landing in a perfect triangle around her. They moved with a silence that was really impressive. One had a blowgun, another had a bow, and the third, a hot-headed-looking one with twin swords, was already grinning. "You have trespassed in our woods, stranger," the one with the blowgun said. She looked like she was in charge. "And you have killed our kin. State your purpose before we end you." Lola didn't even look at the bodies. "They were in my way," she said, her voice flat and cold. She tucked the orb back in her pouch. "I'm looking for 2 people, a sun elf princess and the human boy she's with." "Have you seen them?" Liesa let out a harsh laugh. "Why would we tell you anything? We should just kill you for what you did." "Liesa, be quiet," Mayla commanded. Her eyes were fixed on Lola. "We have seen them, but they are guests of the Elder. They are under our protection." Lola's expression didn't change, but her grip on her daggers tightened. So, they were here, and they were being protected. This just made things a little more annoying. "Then you can tell your elder that her guests have a debt to pay," she said. "And I'm here to collect." Liesa had heard enough. "I'm done with this talk," she yelled, and charged. Mayla cursed under her breath. "Liesa, wait." But Liesa was already a blur, her twin swords aimed in a scissor-like strike at Lola's neck. The attack was super fast, but Lola was on another level. She didn't even seem to move much, just shifted her weight and brought her own daggers up. Clang! The sound of metal on metal was deafening. Lola blocked both swords with a simple, crossed-arm parry. She used Liesa's own momentum to spin her around and sent her stumbling. It was so fast Liesa didn't even know what happened. An arrow hissed through the air. She ducked without looking, the arrow zipping right over her head and burying itself in a tree. She was already moving again, a low, deadly shape gliding across the clearing. Valeria was already knocking another arrow, but she was too slow. Lola threw a small metal pellet onto the ground. It exploded in a thick cloud of black smoke, and the clearing was instantly a mess of confusion. "She's gone," Mayla yelled, trying to see through the smoke. A yelp of pain came from inside the cloud. The smoke cleared a second later, and Liesa was on the ground, clutching her leg. There was a deep, clean cut right above her knee, bleeding freely. Lola was standing over her, one of her daggers dripping red. "Stay down," she said, her voice calm. She looked up at Mayla and Valeria. "You're out of your league. I don't want to kill you, but I will if you keep getting in my way." Mayla stared at her wounded sister, then at the intruder. The woman was a professional. Her movements were efficient and brutal. This wasn't a fight they could win, not like this. "Valeria, get her," Mayla said, nodding at Liesa. Valeria slung her bow over her shoulder and moved to help her sister to her feet. Mayla kept her eyes on Lola, her own weapon held ready. "Who are you?" "I'm the person who is going to find that boy and that princess," she replied. "And I'm going to rip them apart for what they did to my sister." Mayla's eyes widened a little. Her sister? Is that why she is here? But she didn't care about Lola's reasons. She just saw her sister on the ground, bleeding. That was all that mattered. "Valeria, get her out of here," she said. Her voice was completely different now. It was cold and hard. "Go. Now." Valeria didn't argue. She just nodded, her face grim. She helped a protesting Liesa to her feet and half-carried her sister away from the clearing. They knew that tone in Mayla's voice, and they knew what it meant. They had only seen her like this once before, and it was not something you stuck around for. The vibe in the clearing totally changed. It got super heavy, like the air itself was getting thick and hard to breathe. A dark purple energy started bleeding from Mayla's skin, a creepy aura that was seriously scary. She lifted her hands, and the small pouch at her belt glowed. Dozens of thin, silver needles slid out of it, not falling to the ground, but floating in the air all around her. They hummed with a quiet, nasty power, their tips coated in a poison that glowed with a faint, sick-looking green light. Lola's professional calm vanished, replaced by a cold knot of dread in her stomach. "Shit," she thought, her eyes widening. This kid is a monster. She could feel the power coming off Mela, and it was on a whole other level. This wasn't the level 40 scout from before. This was something else entirely. She had faced some serious opponents in her time, and her instincts were screaming at her. This girl, in this state, was at least a level 90 killer. Mela's eyes were locked on her, and they weren't the eyes of the worried older sister anymore. They were cold, empty, and full of a quiet promise of death. "You hurt my family," she said, her voice a low, chilling whisper that carried across the clearing. "You shouldn't have done that." Lola stood her ground, her own daggers held ready, but she knew this wasn't going to be an easy fight anymore. The cocky mercenary who had played with the three sisters was gone. This was real, and it was going to be a battle for her life. The floating needles around Mela shifted, all of their poison tips pointing right at her.